This is August 13th, 2025, regular board meeting for the School District of Waukesha Board of Education. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Eric Brooks.
Here.
Natalie Gren.
Here.
Thomas Harlan.
Here.
Betty Koenig.
Here.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Here.
Diane Voigt.
Here.
David Wad.
Here.
Anthony Zenobia.
Here.
Kelly Piasek.
Here. And Mrs. Ettinger, can you please verify that the meeting has been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. During the summer, we do not have recognitions or bright lights or student representatives. They're getting ready for school. That's starting in just a few weeks. So we will begin with our citizen speakers. So we're now at the section of our meeting where there's an opportunity for citizens to speak. We have 15 speakers signed up for this evening. Because there are more than 6, each individual will be limited to 3 minutes. We will signal the speaker at 2.5 minutes to begin to wrap up their comments. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language, and to be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board meetings. Speakers are here to address the board, not the audience. The school board does not endorse any comments made by members of the community here tonight. We would like to remind our community members of the impact of their words on others and that our children are watching. We commit to communicating with you in respectful and productive ways and ask that you do the same. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the board and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience. Visual aids cannot be used, and the area behind the speaker and podium will be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect our speakers and meeting participants, please silence your cell phones. I will announce the speaker and the individual that will follow, just so that you can be prepared. And our first speaker tonight will be, I believe it's Aaron Gonzalez, followed by Madison Gonzalez.
Thanks.
Is it Aaron?
Yeah.
Welcome, Aaron. We can hear you, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah. My name is Aaron, and I am about to start my 5th grade year at Bethesda Elementary. From the time I started school, I switched schools every year until I came to Bethesda. At first, I was very nervous, but then I realized how welcomed I felt, and I knew that our school was amazing. My dad and mom promised me that I would stay and finish at Bethesda. And although I'm excited to start my last year, I am also disappointed that it might be closing. I have so many friends and love coming to school every single day. At our school, everyone knows everyone, from teachers, friends, our secretary, Miss Escobedo, our librarian, Miss Kao, our principal, to our janitor. We have so many amazing things to offer students. Our school includes everyone, like having special education students in our classrooms and combining our classes with dual language and for activities. Our green team always makes sure our garden is watered and we're included in re-gardening it every spring. We just built our outdoor classroom this past year. One of my favorite memories will always be building the outdoor classroom and our twig glue outside that we read in. And our community loves us. Every year we do our Bethesda Walk, and this year was the biggest ever, raising over $23,000. I can't imagine myself or other kids having to leave Bethesda so quickly, and not having any of these opportunities anymore. If you close our school, you'll be telling us to say goodbye to each other and our community. And at Bethesda, we say, once a bobcat, always a bobcat. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. You did a nice job. Next up is Madison Gonzalez. Madison?
Make sure this
voices. Okay. Good evening. My name is Madison Gonzalez, and I'm a mom of two at Bethesda Elementary, one of which is my son, Aaron, who also spoke tonight. As a parent who attended multiple input sessions this summer on behalf of myself and a lot of other parents who had so many questions and a lot of concerns regarding the Optimizing the Future plan, I'm disappointed to say that I still don't feel confident in the amount of time or effort that has gone into making sure that these plans are doing right by our children's education. It's important that diligent research and impact assessments are done before making a decision, because I cannot imagine the amount of disruption that these plans would cause, especially having to pull them off by the 2026 school year. Bethesda is more than just a school. It is a thriving community that should not be closed for the sake of money or a 2% difference in safety standard. I could go on and on about how our school prioritizes integrating special education students into the classrooms, or how we're only one of two schools that offers dual language to all grades, and all of our students benefit from our dual language program. Or how we raise over $3,000 and give 3 scholarships annually, not to mention the Bethesda Walk that was just raised over $23,000 this year at its highest yet. Our school deserves a chance to thrive and continue the reputation that it holds in this city for being an amazing school with amazing opportunities. In my opinion, based on my experience in my input sessions and what I've observed, I feel that if you choose any of options A through D, you'll be faced with transportation issues, overcrowded classrooms based on a statistic that goes 10 years out and at any point is subject to change, regression in special education students due to these abrupt changes, and a loss of trust between you and a lot of dual language families for cutting their program in half. But we want to work with the district in finding an option E that would involve impact assessments on behalf of our kids, prioritizing our programs such as dual language, special education, STEM, our green team, and so many more, so that opportunities don't decrease and then we're struggling down the line to attract students to our district. And the timeline of these plans becoming more flexible so that kids that will be impacted by a school closure will have the appropriate time to process, as well as accomplishing what it would take to consolidate these schools in time correctly. I will leave you with this directly. If you do not do right by our children and their education and do your due diligence in
30
these plans,
seconds.
we will act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Karen Fraley, followed by Kelly Maxfelt.
Good evening. My name is Karen Fraley, and I am the parent of 2 children in the dual language program at Bethesda and Butler. I sent you 2 alternative proposals, which I hope that you have had time to look over and consider. But what I'd like to talk to you about tonight is something really fantastic that's been happening at Bethesda. 2 years ago, the PTO started seriously discussing plans to upgrade our playground. And in the course of those discussions, we realized that we needed to address the water issues that we have on that side of the building. But it quickly turned into a much bigger project than just figuring out what to do about the fact that when you dig 2 feet down, the hole immediately starts filling with water. So a year ago, we started the Bethesda Green Team as a way to unify all of the outdoor projects, plans, goals, and ideas that we had, and to move those projects forward. So Bethesda sits on about 9 acres of land, and we view this as a huge opportunity to take advantage of that resource. So since then, we've been collecting survey input from teachers, staff, families, and students. We've been in contact with the State of Wisconsin School Forest Program to explore the possibility of planting a school forest on Bethesda's grounds. We've been making plans to reach out to the city to evaluate options for how to control the water flow. We connected with the Waukesha County Green Team to apply for a grant to enhance our garden. And although we weren't funded in the first round, they said that our application was really strong, and we ended up on the wait list, so we might get funded later this year. We started a milk carton recycling program. We worked with teachers to brainstorm ways to integrate our school garden into the new reading curriculum. We started a little free seed library and gave away hundreds of seeds to families to plant in their own gardens. And we completed our biggest project, collaborating with E.B. Shirts and the Environmental Education Program to build an outdoor classroom complete with tables, benches, and a wigloo. But the thing we're proudest of is starting the Student Green Team. When we sent out the sign-up forms, we expected to maybe have 10 to 15 kids, and instead we had nearly 50. From every single grade, 4K to 5th, who were brimming with ideas and energy and enthusiasm. And it was really amazing to see how the older kids took on leadership roles, and they helped the younger kids with writing and spelling, and even translated for some of the younger dual language kids who didn't know a lot of English. And over the course of our meetings, we brainstormed ideas for the garden. We went bird watching, built bird feeders, planted seeds, learned about sifting compost. We made posters to promote the milk carton recycling program, picked up trash all outside the school. And the kids on the green team all got to participate in helping build the outdoor classroom. They laid cardboard, they raked mulch, they learned how to steer wheelbarrows, they wove the willow switches into the Wigloo, and I guarantee you that every single kid who participated can point out exactly which branches they wove into that Wigloo or which square foot of
30
mulch they
seconds.
personally raked. And one thing I want you to take away from this is that place matters. Our students have relationships with each other and with their teachers, yes, but they also have a relationship with the physical space in which they're learning. So Bethesda, the place, the building, and the land, that matters to our kids. One of the future ideas we've talked about with the Green Team is having students plant trees when they're in kindergarten and take care of them and measure them every year through 5th grade. But this is the kind of project that requires permanence. So I really hope you'll see the role that our school plays in our community and that you see the possibilities for the future. And I hope you'll think creatively
Your time
about
is
how to
up.
address the issues our district faces and come at these difficult decisions not from the perspective of what can
Thank
we
you,
cut,
Karen. Sorry.
but rather what can we build.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Kelly Maxfelt, followed by Annie Anderson.
All right. Good evening. My name is Kelly Maxwell, and I am a parent of children who receive special education services in the district where they currently attend Prairie. I want to thank you all for your time and energy you are putting into making difficult decisions for our schools. I understand that overall student enrollment is down and that the district is looking at ways to optimize building use. But as a parent of kids with special needs, I'm concerned that I'm going to cry because my kids mean that much to me. I'm concerned that an important piece of this conversation is being overlooked. While enrollment is shrinking overall, the number of students needing special education is growing, and that growth isn't slowing down. These programs require more space, not less. Quiet rooms, therapy spaces, adaptive classrooms. These aren't luxuries. These are essentials for these kids. They can't be squeezed into leftover corners of a consolidated building. I'm especially concerned about what gets prioritized in these plans. At a recent community feedback session, I heard about planning for future growth in STEM and contingency plans for an increase in the dual language program. But when I asked about planning for special education growth, I was told to write it on a Wondering's Post-it. How am I supposed to feel confident that all students are being considered when that's the kind of response like special education received? Neighborhood schools matter, especially for students with special needs. Shorter bus rides, familiar faces, and access to consistent support system can make all of the difference. Last year, Prairie organized a field trip for special education students to walk to Culver's. They ordered ice cream and built real-life skills. This summer, the staff even planned a popsicles on the playground event so the special ed students and families could reconnect. Playdates aren't simple for special education kids. Let's say all special education kids. These moments build confidence, they build a community and a sense of belonging. That's what neighborhood schools make possible. I'm not against change, but we can't let efficiency come at the cost of equity or at the expense of the schools that so many families like mine count on. Thank you for listening, and thank you for keeping all students in mind as you move forward.
Thank you. Next up is Annie Anderson, followed by Beth Nelson.
Good evening. My name is Annie, and my two daughters attend Prairie Elementary. Today, I would just like to take a minute to express my concern about the plans for the long-term planning. Although I understand the change is necessary, it has also been reiterated that we are not in a crisis. I find this to be an opportunity for the school board to listen to the community and to build trust in what they are hearing. To understand that although you may say that kids are resilient and that they will adjust and all will be well, but to understand that redistricting also means impacting these communities. Communities built on neighborhoods that come together on common ground to build and maintain a strong foundation. A foundation where both kids and parents build lasting relationships and work together to strengthen our schools. I can speak of this firsthand. I recently joined our daughter's school PTA, and I'll be honest, I'm not one to typically step into one of those positions, and I'd rather cheer from the sidelines. But seeing how much our school values our students and how much pride our teachers and principal and fellow parents have in each strive that we take together, I felt empowered to step up. This community is important, and with the plans to redistrict leaves a lot of unanswered questions and what-ifs on the line. How can I or anyone feel confident on what's going to happen next when there are so many unanswered questions? Questions including, how will our special needs communities be impacted? How will this change and improve academic outcomes for all students? How will the resources be impacted with fewer teachers? and space availability? And how will this impact teachers' one-on-one time with students, especially with early intervention if class sizes are to increase? I hope that the school board will listen and take a step back to consider all questions, and that they gather from the community and impact sessions and pause on making a decision until they can provide more clarity in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Beth Nelson, followed by Elizabeth Teelitz.
Hello, good evening. My name is Beth Nelson. I am a parent of a soon-to-be second grader at Bethesda. Just re-registered him today, so go me. I'm sure you guys have heard this 1,000 times, but when my husband and I found out we were pregnant, we already lived in Waukesha, I said, you have to buy me a house. And we moved, specifically, we told our real estate agent we wanted to be in the Bethesda neighborhood, and we wanted to be in Waukesha West. We wanted that because we wanted to be able to walk our son to and from school every day, and I'm proud to say that we do, because he works me over about the environment. But we were so impressed with Bethesda and what our friends that were teachers had told us about Bethesda. We've been blown away so far by the support and the community that is there. There's several parents here that I didn't know, and now I would consider a family, and that's because of Bethesda. We have an amazing PTO, which you guys have heard people talk about. Our school is incredibly accessible. As someone who works with special needs, I am really blown away by our SPED program and how hard our special ed teachers work with those kiddos. We have the second highest enrollment. Everyone's heard about our amazing walk that raised over $22,000. And we have a May Day walk. And let me tell you guys, when I know they're doing their May Day walk, I clear my schedule. And I literally work from my living room and wait for the kids to walk down. They put a little May Day basket on your door and they yell, "Happy May Day!" And I throw my door open, I yell, "Happy May Day!" back to them, and they love that. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I want you guys to know that I feel incredibly safe sending my son to Bethesda. I grew up in the MPS schools, which is a whole different animal. And I actually asked him while I was working on my remarks today, I said, "Hey buddy, do you feel safe going to Bethesda?" And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" Again, second grader, playing with Legos. I go, "Do you feel safe when you're in your school?" And he said, "Oh, yeah." I was asking him if potatoes were growing out of my ears. He says he loves Bethesda and he feels very safe. And I'm fairly confident there could be improvements made to make the school a little bit safer than what it currently is. I'm concerned about the laid out proposals that do not put our kids first. I feel like it puts a dollar sign first. In the last board meeting, there was a comment made that kids will make new friends, new teachers, they'll adapt, they'll find other favorite classes, and so on. I feel like these comments are not acting in the best interest of our students, especially for our SPED kiddos, who thrive in a routine and pattern and familiarity. I'd like to ask the board to please pause their decision, do the homework needed to make an informed choice, and instead of closing Bethesda, invest in Bethesda the way the faculty, families, community, and
30
students have.
seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Teelitz, followed by Antonia Schmidt.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Teelitz, and I have 4 children in the district. 2 have already recently graduated, and I have a senior at North High School and an 8th grader starting at Butler Middle School. I am also a teacher at Summit View Elementary School, Magnet School for Integrated Arts, Design, and Creativity. I'm going into my 27th year of teaching, so you can appreciate my level of interest in this district. Tonight, I am going to give a very quick statement in the format of an integrated art lesson, integrating learning about the science of magnets, analogy, and engagement. And because I want to comply with not having visuals, you'll just have to imagine I have my magnets with me. So, magnets snapping together. When poles align, magnets pull together powerfully. In communities, alignment happens when families see programs that match their values, needs, and hopes for their children. But flipping one magnet so it pushes away, reverse the alignment, and the same magnets push apart. In a district, that can mean families quietly leaving for other options when what they value is reduced or removed. Now for the science part. Magnets have a north and a south pole. Opposite poles attract, their fields align. Like poles repel, their fields clash. The magnet field is invisible but measurable in outcomes, like enrollment, reputation, and community engagement. Small shifts can quickly flip attraction into repulsion. Applied analogy, the school district as a magnet. Specialty programs are a part of the district's magnetic field. Dual language, integrated arts, and personalized learning are strong attractors. They draw families whose priorities align with these offerings. Reducing or eliminating them risks flipping the field from attraction to repulsion, especially when competing districts and charter schools offer these options. Right now, there's somewhat of an imbalance prioritizing STEM over the integrated arts. That choice can unintentionally repel arts-focused families. One solution could be transforming the integrated art school into a STEAM school, keeping the arts magnets strong while aligning with STEM priorities. This approach broadens appeal, meeting multiple needs without losing current supporters. The engagement connection. In physics, magnets work best when poles are balanced and the fields are strong. In education, our field is strengthened when we are meeting diverse learning needs. Every program we offer sends a signal, whether pulling families toward us or pushing them towards another district.
30 seconds.
The question for us is, will our programs create a district that's magnetic to all families, or will we unintentionally reverse the polarity of some? When making your decision regarding optimizing the future of our district, I implore you to please consider all the specialty programs in schools that can't simply be embedded into other schools. We have spent many hours in our professional development to hone our craft to offer engaging lessons and programs. Now imagine all of the magnets coming together and making a strong force. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Antonia Schmidt, followed by Brandy Conkle.
Good evening. My name is Antonia Schmidt, and I am a proud mother of 2 wonderful children attending Bethesda this school year. My son Watson is about to begin his kindergarten journey, while my daughter Raylan, who participates in the special education program, is eagerly anticipating joining her peers in the 2nd grade. I am here tonight to advocate for the educational experience of both of my children, and to most importantly, be a voice for the families who have found supportive community within Bethesda's special education program. This year marks Raylan's 4th year at Bethesda. She is a lively 7-year-old with Down syndrome, a vibrant redhead who has worked incredibly hard to establish a sense of belonging and routine in her school environment. It has taken Raylan 3 full years to find her rhythm at school, amidst various schedule changes, shifts in personnel, and adjustments in the support provided to her. These years have been crucial for her to build confidence and trust in the educators and the staff she interacts with on a daily basis. So as you can imagine, when I learned of the potential closure of Bethesda and all 4 proposed options, my heart broke instantly. It is clear to us parents now that Bethesda has been neglected, almost seemingly like an afterthought when it came to any funding decisions. Yet it is in the heart of Merrillcrest neighborhood, nestled within a beautiful subdivision, providing a walkable school experience that requires very little transportation. Bethesda also has the 2nd highest elementary capacity, with space for 4 sections per grade to be provided. And even more importantly, it is handicap accessible. I know for a fact there are many opportunities to save Bethesda if we are just given a chance. And the high parent and community involvement and engagement is a testament to its importance and its potential. The school has been a cornerstone in Raylan's development and well-being. I can not overstate the importance of maintaining the stability and security that Bethesda offers to children in the special education program and their families. I urge you to consider the profound impact this institution has on the lives of students like Raylan, and to explore solutions that preserve the invaluable building that supports growth and success. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Next up is Brandy Conkle, followed by Amber Kraus.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for a moment of your time tonight. My name is Brandy Conkle. I'm a mom to 2 kids. I will have a kindergartner and a 5th grader at Bethesda Elementary. My journey through the education system was arduous. I grew up as a military brat. I attended 9 different schools across multiple states, each with shifting curriculums, expectations, and social landscapes. Academically, I was behind by the time I reached the Wisconsin school system, and it required an immense amount of effort to place in my grade level. At 17, in the middle of my senior year, I was once again going to be pulled to move. But determined to graduate, I decided to stay in Wisconsin as my family moved away. And with dedicated hard work, I did indeed graduate with my class. Wisconsin became my home, and I established roots here in Waukesha in the gem that is Merrill Crest, with Bethesda nestled at the heart of our community, and it would become the bedrock for my family. Due to its open concept layout, Bethesda faces closure over a 2% safety gap, a 96% rating against a 98% rating at other schools. Safety isn't abstract to me. I have crossed train tracks in the southern heat to attend class in a portable without AC. I've navigated dysfunctional busing systems, and I have lived through a school shooting. There are scars that have shaped the way that I view safety. For Bethesda, I never saw its lack of walls. What resonated with me was the secure entrance, exterior cameras, low traffic roadways, and perimeter exits. We want to focus on how to correct that 2% safety gap, and we stand ready to propose solutions that keep Bethesda open while addressing those safety concerns. I implore you to allow us this opportunity to do so and create a new plan. Reflecting on my own fractured education, there are deep wounds that is difficult to articulate. However, it comes with clarity that I, as a mother, will provide and now advocate for my children to have a safe and nurturing, stable education foundation. I expected Bethesda to be a tangible vessel that would educate my children. I did not expect it to be a healer of my own broken education. Bethesda is more than just a building. It is an anchor. It is a lifeline to a vibrant and thriving community of Waukesha. It carries impassioned and skilled educators, a rich and diverse student body, and dedicated parents. We stand at the precipice of a decision that will echo through
30
Merrill Crest.
seconds.
Consider not just the future that might be built, but the scars that will forever shape our community. What wounds will be left in its wake? I ask you to believe in us, believe in Bethesda. Please protect and save our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Amber Kraus, followed by April Gallagher.
Hi, my name is Amber Kraus, and I'd like to talk about Bethesda and what makes it such an amazing school. Our community. Bethesda is the heart of the Merrill Crest neighborhood, located within a safe subdivision with a large line of sight. I hope this is taken into consideration when discussing the safety of our schools. It's walkable with very little transportation needed. In fact, we only have 3 total buses, 2 of which are for special education. We have a very high parent and community involvement and engagement, and the homes around Bethesda experience increased property values and quick home sales due to the desirable neighborhood. People move to the area for Bethesda. The building. We have the second highest elementary capacity. We have space for 4 sections per grade, which gives us the opportunity to have both 2 mono and 2 dual classes. The building is handicap accessible. There's a large amount of green space, 9 acres with a garden and that newly built outdoor classroom area. Most classrooms have exterior doors, which we consider a positive in the event that students would need to escape in an emergency evacuation situation. There's adequate parking spaces in our lot and multiple areas for school drop-off and pickup. We have many great programs and groups, such as dual language, which we're one of only 2 schools that offer mono and dual for all grades, including 4K. We have an active PTO and fundraising efforts. You've heard about our Bethesda Walk. The community writes encouraging messages in chalk along the sidewalk. The neighbors sit outside and cheer our students on. And it's also coordinated with our local police and fire department each year, both to keep us safe and for the fun at the end of the event when the fire department sets up their ladder and sprays the students. We're only capable of doing this walk because it's a neighborhood school. And as you heard this past year, we raised a record-breaking almost $23,000 alone for this walk. Our green team has a goal of making Bethesda a greener, more sustainable space. We just started this team last year, and as you heard, already has 50 students and is expected to continue to grow. We have multiple active Cub Scout and Girl Scout troops. In fact, our Cub Scout pack started in 1978. We have before and after school care, and our parents are worried about the consolidation of schools, that there won't be enough space for our kids during this program. And also our Coins for College scholarship, which has been a tradition for 18 years. The students have raised around $3,000 and given 3 scholarships annually.
30
So
seconds.
to address safety, we added a front main office area that's secure. We have a bank of security doors that were added and are activated by a button to close certain halls, an upgraded camera system, and updates that were funded by our PTO due to lack of financial support over the last 5 years or so. This includes vinyl window security coverings and our new gym floor soundproofing and sound system upgrade. So we keep hearing that Bethesda is like 96% versus 98%. So give us that chance to make it safer and see what it would take to add those walls.
Your time
use
is
our
up.
PTO fundraising and apply for FEMA grants. Thank you.
Next up is, I think, April Gallagher, followed by Melissa Toledo.
Hello. I just want to first off say thank you for the board for all your time and attention on this topic. I know you guys have been flooded with calls, postcards, emails, proposal ideas, and meeting requests. So thank you for everybody who has been willing to meet here and outside to meet with our group. My daughter just finished her first year of 4K year, and she's in the dual language program. My favorite part every morning of going to school is figuring out how we're going to get there. She takes 15 minutes figuring out if we're going to walk, ride her bike, ride her scooter, jump ropes, whatever it takes to get there. And she makes sure at drop off to let me know how she wants to get home. If she yells, bring my scooter, bring my bike, and I must follow that or I get a lecture on the way home from school. I was hesitant at first to join the dual language program, I admit, but I immediately fell in love with it and the wonderful Bethesda community. We moved to Waukesha in 2021 due to my job, but my job's actually not even in Waukesha. It's 40 minutes away. So I choose to commute because we fell in love with the neighborhood and the school. We've since had 2 more kids with hopes of walking them to Bethesda every morning, just like we do our daughter. One great thing about Bethesda is all the sidewalks. You can safely get there from any direction you're coming. You can't do that at every elementary school in the district, but none of those schools somehow showed up on the proposals, but Bethesda was on every single one. So just please consider that when you decide which schools to close. Also, please consider that we're the #1 choice in school in the district. So if you close us, you're going to eliminate the dual language program on the entire west side. Don't do that to those kids. We need that access on that side of town. I know safety is a concern, and it's been brought up with the lack of walls. Personally, I'd rather my daughter run out one of the many doors and run into the neighborhood, which has many people willing to help. I wanted to bring my hard hat to show you I'm actually ready to go build walls, but I was told that would probably count as a visual aid, so I left it in my car. But I'm ready. If you need help building the walls, I'll go do it, as I'm sure many of the Bethesda parents will go help that are here tonight and that are watching online. We will help. We've proven that time and time again. You've heard us bring it up. Record-breaking PTO fundraising this year. We've shown up this summer. We've been present. We've been loud. Use us to your advantage. We want to help. We want to make a difference. Don't take that away. As I said, also, my oldest just started school, so I have 2 more left. I have many more years to be involved.
30 seconds.
So just please use us, we want to team up. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Melissa Toledo, followed by Paul Reese.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. While I would love to deliver this in Spanish, I believe it's important to address these topics in English to ensure clarity and avoid anything getting lost in translation. I thought it'd be easier being up here again, but it is not. I'd like to sincerely thank the board members and administrators who have responded to my emails and taken time to meet with me or looking forward to meeting me over the next week or so. I really, truly appreciate your time, especially during the summer. When I first became involved, I was driven largely by emotion, as I'm sure you could tell. The sadness and frustration I felt on behalf of my son, who just turned 5 last week and already built deep roots in Bethesda with a lot of the children of the parents who are here today. Since then, I've taken time to review more data, conduct further research, and engage with other parents. Today, I speak not only as a concerned parent, but as a voice for many in the Bethesda community. There's just a few comments and questions that I think are important to highlight, which are what I'm going to touch on today, aside from many that have already been touched on. So why keep Bethesda? The community, the staff, students, the programs and groups, location, security, although that's kind of the topic we're here is why we're closing it, and the actual building. So I'm sure you can tell we have very extremely involved and passionate group of parents, and as April mentioned, use that to your advantage. We are here to do what's necessary to save Bethesda. And if you look at the transfer numbers, Bethesda is the most transferred in elementary school. 70 mono students are in-district transfers, 32 alone come from Lowell. That's just something that's really important to highlight. And 105 dual language students are in-district transfers. Dual language makes Bethesda strong. There's an incredible PTO that I was a part of halfway through the year and will be a part of now this year, and we fundraise a lot. Again, use that to your advantage. It's walkable for students, only need 3 buses. Again, you've heard all these. And I would agree, I'd rather my son run to Megan's house, whose husband is a police officer, or to April's house that he knows by heart where it is, than have to hunker down in a corner. And I know that's not necessarily the protocol, but I think a lot of parents would agree they prefer their kids to run and be safe than risk being stuck inside of a 4-wall classroom. It also has come up that Bethesda seems to have been left behind, and we don't know why that is. But it's been open since 1975. Why is security now just being a concern? Why are the walls just now something that is an issue? Also, for the HVAC, Bethesda only received
30
$383K, while many other schools and the Blair Building received more. Also, for the playground upgrades that are listed in this SDW CIP report, Bethesda isn't listed at all, but yet the playground is of concern. So I'll fast forward, but I think some asks, I would love to have the ability to invite the admin and board members at separate times or when possible to do a tour with a parent and with staff, and also just keep us involved and make sure that we can help save Bethesda and dual language at Bethesda. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Paul Reese, followed by Megan Eigenbrod.
Good evening. Probably one of my favorite authors and thinkers is C.S. Lewis. I love the way the guy can square the circle and pound out an idea. He is a great thinker, and it has helped formed the way I think at life and look at things and approach them. One of his greatest writings was his last one. It was on whether or not we have the right to happiness. And his argument was no, we don't have the right to happiness. Happiness is not something that we have a right to. And he uses that form as what we have a right to, and we will perceive as a right, is in marriage, if I have a right to happiness and I'm not happy, I have a right to have an affair on my wife or have an affair on a spouse. And that is not a right, and it is not a right thing to do. And he lays out that just because you have a right to do something does not make it a right thing to do. And one of the things that have been talked about is we have a right to offer a referendum to raise our neighbors' taxes and to cause hardship on people. I have a little old lady that lives behind me. She built that house. I live in Merrill Crest. Her husband and her built that house, and they raised their kids there. She is on a fixed income. Her earning potential is no longer in front of her, it's behind her. There are many people in this town, and they might be in the minority, but they are on fixed incomes, and if we go to referendum and force this upon them, we can tax them out of their house. You want to see tears when people stand up, when you tax them out of their house? When you constantly raise their taxes, when their water bills have tripled? You want to see tears of people a husband who worked all of his life and toiled so his wife would have a spot. He knew he was going to die early. All of his family, all the men in his family were dead by 50. He made it to like 51. He outlived the odds. And he left his wife this little piece of life. And she has the right to live there in happiness, in what happiness she can find. She does have that right, and people want to take it away to have an equal opportunity. We're not taking away from anybody. They will have an equal opportunity wherever they go. You know, when I'm sitting back there, I remembered a Pink Floyd song, "Don't Worry, Mother will put all of her fears into you." The parents just inject these fears into their parents.
30
into their
seconds.
children. It's unrational to do that to your kids. They will have equal opportunity where they go. This town provides a good education for all of its students. It takes care of all of its students. Some of these same fears were brought up when this building closed, and nothing came to fruition. This town has done a great job in taking care of the students that it educates. And kudos to you for doing it and the investments you've made. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Megan Eigenbrod, followed by Megan Ippolite.
Good evening, board members, administration. My name is Megan Eigenbrod, and I'm a Bethesda parent. I first want to start out by thanking the members of the board and administration for meeting with myself and many other members of the community. Your time is valuable, and your commitment to this process is evident. We thank you for extending the hand of true collaboration and partnership to find the right proposal that benefits the children of Waukesha. For those board members that have yet to meet with members of the public, I urge you to engage with us and hear our different points of view. As a community, we have learned so much from one another by sharing our different opinions, perspectives, and even upbringings, and I feel that you could also benefit from hearing from us as well. As you are aware, many of those of us in attendance first intended to save Bethesda. That was obviously and we still want to, obviously, but although that still reigns true, these sentiments are now not just driven by emotions, but also by data. Many of the members of the board strongly support parents' choice, which is a wonderful thing. That as parents, we can choose the best school for our children that will allow them to learn to the best of their abilities and subject them to programs and services that will benefit them the most. With that in mind, Bethesda is the #1 choice in elementary school in the district. Out of 11 elementary schools, 4 dual language programs, and various arts programs, Bethesda is chosen time and time again as a #1 choice that parents want their children to be educated at. Of course, there are a multitude of emotion and fact-based reasons why Bethesda should stay open, but as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Maybe a more emotional point to make, in this day and age, myself included, many people work 100% remotely. My husband and I could and have lived anywhere we wanted and have the same career opportunities and salaries. We moved 4 years ago to Waukesha from the city of Chicago as both of us were born and raised in Illinois. We chose Wisconsin, we chose Waukesha, we chose the Maricross neighborhood, and we chose Bethesda. We chose to live right across the street from a school that we intended for all 3 of our daughters to be educated at. It was a choice to invest in Waukesha, and we plan to continue doing so. We've only been here for a short time, but as many of you can see, I am dedicated to this place for the long haul. Strong schools attract strong businesses and create strong communities. Bethesda is a strong community within a flourishing neighborhood. Neighborhoods like the old days where
30
kids play
seconds.
outside, kids ride their bikes to school, and teachers wave as they walk or scooter by because some of them live in that very neighborhood. It truly is an idealistic place, and the school district of Waukesha would be doing a huge disservice to the kids and parents that choose Bethesda by voting to close it. We thank you for your continued partnership, and we look forward to finding a strong long-term resolution together. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. The last speaker tonight is Megan Ippolite.
Good evening. I would like to start by thanking the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I want to thank those of you on the board that have met with us, that's through email and phone conversations, and some of you in person. Those conversations have been invaluable in this process, and I do thank you for that. My name is Megan Ippolite, and I am a Bethesda parent. Shocker. This is emotional because it's our kids, it's our neighborhood, it's our community, it's our school. And you can see from the many Bethesda t-shirts and the yard signs, and our presence at the listening sessions, and last month's board meeting speeches, that we are here to save Bethesda. But tonight I'm not going to focus on emotions. Tonight I'm going to focus on the data, because the data shows what makes Bethesda so special for the students and that community. Bethesda is #1 for in-district transfers. More than 150 students choose Bethesda. And yes, dual language draws students in, but Bethesda's non-dual language transfers are higher than 70% of the other elementary schools. So it is not just about the dual language program that draws students in. Bethesda is tied for #1 in 504 plans, has higher IEP counts than 70% of the other schools, and is among a small group of schools with high numbers in all 3 major student need categories, which are special education, socioeconomic status, and English language learners. But students are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, and they are more than just a statistic. Every seat is a child with a name, a family, strengths, challenges, and needs. Many of these children rely on the specialized services and relationships that they have built at Bethesda. Moving them without considering how those services will function is not a plan, it's a gamble. And yet despite this data, Bethesda is marked for closure in every one of the 4 proposals, and that should raise serious questions as to why. A school that is number 1 for in-district transfers, serves a high number of students with special education needs, has the highest number of 504 plans, has 156 economically disadvantaged students, and Bethesda has more English learners than nearly 2/3 of the elementary schools. A school that is a true community anchor, one of the last truly walkable schools, a school with a huge community presence and a strong PTO, should not be
30
on the top
seconds.
of any closure list. Bethesda's impact cannot be measured by a building checklist alone. Bethesda has been overlooked for upgrades that other schools have received, and maintenance requests take too long to be resolved. Bethesda is worth investing in because it will continue to be a school that families choose, and that is the great return on investment. If the district's goal is a plan that lasts 10 to 15 years, then the focus must go beyond our elementary schools. We can't fix underutilization if middle and high schools are not on the
Your
board.
time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. All right, thank you, everyone. I do want to just extend my appreciation to our speakers tonight. You guys did a great job staying on time and following our requested rules. So I know sometimes it doesn't always feel like it makes sense, but just to make it fair for everybody. So thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you coming and being willing to speak to us. We are moving on to general business. So we'll start with our minutes approval. We have 2 sets of minutes for your consideration tonight, both from the July 9th, one from the regular board meeting, one from the executive session. I'd be looking for a motion. Mrs. White?
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Koenig. Any concerns? Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Betty Koenig?
Aye.
Natalie Gren?
Aye.
Eric Brooks?
Aye.
David Wad?
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia?
Aye.
Thomas Harland?
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski?
Aye.
Diane Voigt?
Aye.
Kelly Piasek?
Aye, passes 9-0. Next up is our WEF report. Mrs. Koenig.
Thank you, Madam President. The Waukesha Education Foundation Board of Directors met last in June. We will resume meetings in September. First thing to talk about and share is the 2025 golf outing. The 2025 golf outing was a huge success with 188 golfers on a very hot but thankfully dry day. Thanks to all board members who attended, sponsored, or stopped by to bid or buy raffle tickets. Financially, it was our most successful event yet, and we will share numbers when we have them completed. The WEF was invited to be a featured guest on a radio show called Milwaukee's Philanthropic Community, which airs on WISN 1130 on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. and is also streamed on many platforms as a podcast. The show is presented by Ellen Becker Investment Group and highlights nonprofit organizations and helps listeners understand how they can have a personal impact on our community. We were asked to invite another nonprofit to join us, and we selected Blessings in a Backpack, who won our Community Partner Award in 2024. We will be taping our segment next week, and it will air early this fall. We were excited to be asked and look forward to sharing our story. The WEF also will be hosting a booth at the Waukesha Farmers Market on August 23rd. Make sure you come and say hello. We are now preparing for the start of our 25-26 program year, and we'll be back with more save the dates soon. Finally, as a reminder, we have several WEF board members who will be completing their term at the end of the 2025 year, and we're looking for new board members to join us. If you know anyone who might be interested, please contact Lynette. We've had a few referrals who we have reached back out to. Madam President, this concludes my WEF report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Koenig. All right. Next up is, I'll turn over to Dr. Siebert for an update on optimizing our future and long-range planning.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Piasek. So we will walk through an overview of a presentation that we've put together. We In this presentation, we'll have kind of an overview of our overall process and the data that leads us to this process. We'll do a review of the summer, which was very productive, and as we talked about, we're using the month of August to review the data and prepare for the new school year, which is under 3 weeks away now, coming really quickly. We'll talk about the cost of the status quo or not doing anything and why that would be a challenge for us, and we'll also talk about the benefits that we see in having a smaller district footprint. And then we'll conclude this presentation by talking about our next steps that we can do together collectively in September and beyond. So with that being said, you're very familiar with our process, but just for everyone's awareness, we started talking about this back in March. We held our information sharing sessions, 9 of those in April and May, for staff members and for the community. We'll talk more in depth about phase 2, which we had a total of 26 actually sessions this summer, and we'll go through the data on those. And those were very valuable to us, and we think we are grateful, very grateful that we had the attendance that we did, and grateful that we had the opportunity to do those. And then that all builds into phase 3, which is where we hope to present a final recommendation to you as a board for your considered approval. We've had this slide so many times, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's important that we just continue to understand that we are not alone in this conversation. We are one of the more proactive ones in trying to get out in front of it, which I think is important as a school district. And we have lots of other examples of similar sized school districts as well as neighboring school districts that face the same challenges that we do. And that challenge also makes its way into higher education, into the skilled trades, as we have fewer and fewer students coming through K-12 education, which then exacerbates itself into the workforce and beyond. This was one of our phase 1 slides, and I think we don't want to ever lose sight of the rationale behind this process. We take great pride in providing high-quality educational opportunities to the students of this community, and we want to continue to do that at a high level. We're very proud of the teachers and the district support staff that we have, and how they all have come together around a vision with your support of curricular resources and your support of us with a strong focus on student achievement. We want to continue to do the number of great things that we do in the school district of Waukesha, and we think the best way to do that year over year as our population shrinks and our resources accordingly become challenged is to right-size the school district of Waukesha. We've talked a lot about the birth rate, and I think you hear it more and more now on various fronts, right? You see it in the media, you see it all over, and when we look at a 20-year snapshot from the Department of Health Services in Wisconsin, we can see that the United States has declined, Wisconsin has declined at a sharper rate, and here in Waukesha County we've declined at an even sharper rate when it comes to the birth rate, and that's the driving force behind this conversation and behind the declining enrollment that we and so many other school districts face. We've showed this slide multiple times where we take a very similar 20-year snapshot and we show the challenge that we've had in terms of losing 25.5% of our enrollment over that 20-year period, but also recognizing that during that entire 20-year period, we've been the 7th largest school district in the state of Wisconsin for that entire period. So again, we're not alone. Everyone is losing students at a relatively similar pace. Our neighbors in Kettle Moraine over this same period lost 25% of their students, right? So a 0.5% difference. So the challenge is real, and the rationale behind the work. We've also talked a lot in phase 1 and in phase 2 in our sessions about the capacity that we have within the school district of Waukesha. So overall, 14,232 seats. In the year that we just finished, 9,675 students in our actual school facilities, leaving over 4,500 seats of vacancy with that continual 2% decline in enrollment that we project through 2034. So as I said, over the summer, we had 26 gathering input sessions. We started those in June, and that's when we worked with our school leadership team members. That was the day after the school year got out, which I believe was Friday, June 13th. It was, because we graduated on Saturday, June 14th, which was one of our later graduations. We had right around 200 people in the North Auditorium, and we worked with them on being an example of people that could give us feedback on how we could move forward in the best way possible. And then we had the opportunity the next week to work with our Discover SDW cohort from this past year, my Superintendent's Advisory Committee of Teachers, and the Superintendent's Advisory Council of Parents. In July, and thank you to the board members for those of you that were able to join us for several of those, that was very much appreciated. 6 sessions for our staff members, 16 sessions for our parents and community members, which included 2 Spanish-only sessions. And during those, we used conversation as well as our Post-it note process for people to provide strengths, wonderings, and opportunities for enhancement for each of the 4 options that we administratively designed. And we were very clear in those sessions when we opened them and throughout the conversation that those options are not set in stone, and that we are trying to listen and we are trying to come up with what's the most palatable option for the community, for the board, for all of us to move forward with together. And then we also had an option at the end for people to do a rank order of the options online. And so about 15 minutes before our sessions were over, everyone got an email and they could then take part in that online ranking system. So we'll go through some numbers, and you'll see that, as I said, we had 218 people. I said just over 200, but it was actually about 218 in those first June sessions with our internal groups. In our July sessions, we had 6 sessions for the staff members. We had 86 people that signed up for those. And in the 16 sessions for parents and community members, we had 377 people who signed up for those. So we had a total of 463 there. Again, opportunity to do all of the Post-it work. And then the final step was the survey to rank order the preference. So 189 people that came in person did the online survey. And I'll tell you how many of those people in that of the 377 attended in the next slide. And then there was also the online input and survey option for people that didn't want to come in person. We had 247 people take part in that. So combined there, we have a total of 436. So throughout the summer, we've touched over 1,000 people, and they've given us their input and touched us certainly as well. So in the month of July, the staff sessions, of the 86 people that signed up, we had 61 attend for a 71% attendance rate. And we recognize, I'm just giving you the data, we recognize that things come up, right? And people have appointments and unintended things that they didn't have planned that prohibit their attendance. Same with the in-person staff and community or parent and community member sessions. 377 people signed up. We had 213 of those people attend. So we had a 56% attendance rate in those sessions. And then 436 people have completed the option ranking survey, like I said in the last slide. So that means 189 of the 213 people that came in person to the parent community sessions also did the ranking survey, so that's a high percentage. And then 247 people did the online process where they provided input online as well as took the ranking survey. You're well aware of the options that we've put forward for feedback. Option A is the K-8 STEM at Summit View. It gets us a 12% reduction in capacity, or just over 1,600 seats. Option B is the K-8 STEM at Les Paul option. That's a 16% capacity reduction with just over 2,100 seats. Option C was a grade reconfiguration with 5th grade moving up to the middle schools. That was a 16% capacity with just over 2,000 seats, same reduction as Plan B or Option B. And then the last one is Option D, which is the different look of grade reconfiguration of 4K3, 4-6 intermediate schools, and 7-12 school structures. That one leads to a 22% capacity reduction, or just over 3,000 seats. We talked at our July meeting about our estimated annual cost savings. So these are cost savings year over year that we would realize as an estimate with these plans. And that's just another snapshot with option A coming in at just over 2 million in annual savings. And then you can see each of those plans continues to give us a little bit more in savings, 2.8 nearly in option B, a little over 3 million in option C, and just under 4.7 million in annual savings with option D. So I wanted to also talk with you just briefly tonight about the cost of the status quo. And if we were to do nothing look at what we have currently in terms of our brick and mortar students. So the year we just finished, that number that we talked about is 9,675. We have experienced that 2% decline for years, and our enrollment studies show that we should expect to continue to experience it through at least 2034. So that's roughly a 10-year look, gets us to 2035, and let's just show what that would look like if that trend continues. So by 2030, at 2% a year, we would be down another 10% to roughly 8,700 students. Every year, we have a $3 to $4 million structural deficit that we address through voluntary attrition and retirements primarily. So we took the 3 million conservative number and multiplied that times 5. That gives us $15 million in budget reductions that we would be making. And then, as we do every year, the additional right sizing of employee groups. So that would be by 2030. By 2035, we could project that we would be down another 10% based on the birth rate decline, and just be over 7,800 students. And so then you would have another 15 million of cuts that we would make, at least, right? So that would be 30 million in budget reductions with additional right sizing of employee groups. And so I point that out from the standpoint to say that by that time, had we done nothing, by 2035, we'd be the current size of Elmbrook. And Elmbrook, as they exist today, has 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools. So we use that just as an example to say we don't think the answer is the status quo. I think we've been able to communicate that throughout the summer, throughout the discussions that we've had with our staff and with our parents and community. I think we have an understanding that the status quo is not acceptable, right? I think our challenge is going to be figuring out what is the most palatable, as I said earlier, to the vast majority of people, and that's in where we find ourselves, and that's where the struggle lies. But with that being said, what we also thought we could talk about tonight are what we term as the benefits of right sizing. And back to that slide where we're talking about the things that we're trying to accomplish, our fundamental purpose is to educate the students of this community. And we believe with a smaller district footprint, we can maintain and we can even enhance the services that we provide in these array of areas. So as a cabinet, we're going to kind of just bounce around a little bit and talk about the way that we see right sizing benefiting us in these varied areas. And we'll start with Deputy Superintendent Genderman for the first two.
The first one that I'll talk about is the guaranteed and viable curriculum. This is one of the benefits that we've absolutely already been on the journey of ensuring that our teachers and students have a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We're also able to ensure that our students across the system have common learning experiences with this common curriculum resources. Since we have common resources for the curriculum portion of right sizing, this will allow our students and educators minimal disruption in the area of teaching and learning, given any change in schools and grade reconfiguration with our current resources. The next benefit we wanted to talk about and highlight is our 4K and early learning experiences. Currently, we have multiple opportunities for families to engage in 4K learning, either at our sites and or in the community, at our community partners. One thing that we've heard throughout the feedback is a possible idea of enhancing this by offering an all-day 4K opportunity at each of our sites within the district. So that would be something to investigate and be a nice offering as we move forward with our schools and our footprint, given any adjustments, is just evaluating our current offerings and seeing how we can enhance that with an all-day opportunity at each site.
Thank you, Ms. Getterman. In terms of arts and music, we're intrigued by options that could have that happening earlier in a student's experience, right? And I think we used to be able to do that years and years ago, right? And now, at this point in time, the only fifth grade experience we have with band is at Summit View. If we were in a model such as the one that comes to mind is the 4-6 intermediate school, I think it'd be wonderful to be able to say we can start music in fourth grade, right? And we can have kids start having those performing music experiences at a younger age, which only benefits us in terms of building as we get to the high school level. And right now, we could really probably use that, I would say. Our marching bands and some of our performing groups aren't nearly as large as they once used to be, which partially is declining enrollment, but partially could be enhanced by starting earlier and getting kids a little bit of a head start in that ballpark. We'll move on to class size and traveling staff with Mrs. Thiede.
So some advantages of reducing our footprint has to do with stabilizing class size throughout the elementary experience in particular, where we have class sizes ranging from in 17 to 18 upwards to 28, depending as we're stretched so thin. By reducing the number of schools, we would hope to stabilize the class sizes at those averages that we indicated we desire, those 22 at the younger grades and 25 beyond. And that also then impacts that traveling staff, primarily in the specials, music, PE, but then also in student services. With fewer sites, we would be able to have more consistent staff and travel fewer staff, which I think Mr. Pat will talk about in the student service realm and what that would look like.
Thank you, Mrs. Thiede. Mr. Pat, would you walk us through special ed and student services?
Yes, building off of Mrs. Thiede, bringing together and consolidating resources where you have experts in mental health, behavioral support that currently can be stretched a little thin with multiple sites, bringing them together. Additionally, with special education teachers, there are 12 Wisconsin DPI categories for students who receive IEPs and their diverse group of learners, and to bring together staff members who have expertise, especially in our elementary schools, where, again, with resources spread a little bit thin, sometimes there's one or two teachers and aides, bringing them together to be able to talk about the students they have, the expertise they bring to each other, and the collaboration is definitely an enhancement and an opportunity.
And if you want to continue on with transportation, feel free.
Yeah, so transportation-wise, for each of these plans, we would look to redraw our boundaries, and that gives us an opportunity for efficiencies, working with our transportation partner, with technology and software, and address something we haven't addressed in a long time, which is those boundaries and the opportunity to really enhance our routes and be efficient in everything we do for our students in transportation.
Before and after school programming is something that we have a great partnership with the City of Waukesha and the Park and Rec Department. We believe that in fewer sites, we can continue to make that program even stronger, have more students have the opportunity, have the Park and Rec not stretched as thin as they are when they're stretched throughout actually 10 currently of our elementary schools. And then Mr. Clark will talk about facility maintenance.
Yeah, with fewer sites, our existing maintenance budget would allow us to do more work and be more impactful at the remaining sites rather than spreading those dollars over 2 million square feet. We just can't get to as many buildings as we would like to. That would not only include maintenance improvements, but also technology improvements along with that. Also, by eliminating some buildings from our footprint, you'd also avoid the deferred maintenance costs that are out there. So it would never be a cost never incurred, so you'd never see it in a financial report, but it's certainly there, just like our homes. I'm sure each of us have things we'd like to see get done. In the fewer things that need to be done, again, we can save those dollars and focus more on the remaining buildings. And then lastly, the other option to continue to maintain 2 million square feet of space is to ultimately maybe have to go to the taxpayers for a referendum, which we are trying to avoid, because there's a cost to that, both to, I guess, everyone across the school district through their property taxes. So we're trying to avoid that cost. We are trying to maintain Waukesha as a place where young families can afford to live. So that is part of the matrix of thoughts that we're going through. So those would be the items that I would consider the most important when looking at a smaller footprint.
All right, thank you, Mr. Clark. So in terms of next steps, as we talked about early on, we wrapped these sessions up just under 2 weeks ago. And so we're spending time diving into the feedback. We have a roughly 2,900 Post-its on the multiple posters that we have. Those are up on our website now for people to be able to look at. And so we're reviewing that, and we're also very much getting ready for the 25-26 school year. In the month of September, what we would envision is coming back to you with an analysis of the feedback and some thoughts on how we could potentially move forward from an administrative perspective based on the feedback we have, and also gathering your input as well, right? So it's very important that you have your voice heard and you're giving us feedback in terms of what you would like us to see and bring to you going forward, obviously. And then just a few final thoughts. We certainly aren't in a crisis, right? But as we talked about, if we did the status quo, we would be, right? We would not have the viable future that we're planning for. And so we think this fiscally responsible approach is proactive and the right thing to do. When we started back in March, and we have until September of 2026 to implement a plan, that's 18 months in total. That allows for a lot of good collaboration that we've already had and can look to continue. And so that transparent process that includes all that feedback from our various stakeholder groups has been important to us, and I think will continue. We obviously have the decline in student enrollment, like we've talked about, for several months. We have no reason to believe that those predictions will not continue to materialize. And, there we go. We're really taking some time to evaluate that summer input from our various groups and allowing it to assist us in informing our next steps. And as I said earlier, we're very appreciative to all the people that took time this summer to spend that time with us. So, with that being said, that is my last slide and our collective last slide. And we appreciate you listening, and we'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you might have as a board.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert. I'm thinking that multiple board members have some questions. So I guess what I would just ask is maybe similar to last time, but if your initial turn could be limited to 4 or 5 minutes, and then we can come back around after everybody's had a chance, or if there's nothing else remaining, just so we get everybody some time. I think we have time to take to kind of talk about what's on people's minds. Seeing anybody jumping at it, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate the time that you, Dr. Siebert, and your cabinet members and other staff members put into making yourselves accessible to the community. And I think that those were very important conversations. And I know that not everybody thought the process of the Post-it notes was ideal. I don't know that there was a digital alternative that would have allowed us to have the in-person conversations that we had. But I do know that every one of those was captured, and that there's effort being taken to make sure that those ideas are not lost. So I do appreciate the process, and I also appreciate all the members of the community that came and spent that time with us, whether it was an evening or an early morning or on a weekend, and I think that was productive, and I think opened up some just trust and some open channels of communication for people. Who would like to begin? Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. So we've been through this presentation a number of times now. I know the public has as well. What strikes me, I guess, this go-around is kind of how bleak the declining enrollment really is. And, in looking 10 years down the road, our district being something similar to the Elmbrook School District is, I think, a good way to look at just how quickly that is occurring. I know there's been some talk about other studies that have been done in Waukesha here and about the possibility of us adding population and adding new students. And I think that is, I think there's an offsetting benefit that goes on, that as families, like many of the ones that we heard from tonight, move into the district and send their kids to schools, there's also a very large aging population that is just, their childbearing years are behind them, and there are not as many kids. And there are studies nationally and even internationally that, just speaking very generally and broadly, the Western industrialized nations are declining almost at a crisis level. Now, you kind of see, you hear about families moving into the district, and that's wonderful. I think Waukesha provides an excellent place to live, and I think many people take advantage of that. And my hope is that these numbers equalize in the near future. But to me, as a board member that, in my fourth year now, these declining enrollment numbers were brought up, I think, in the first workshop I sat in. And it's just, when we want to look at declining enrollment data, we have it. So I think the very best data that we can look at, despite all the other studies in the area, is our own. How many people are in our seats each and every year? And sadly, that has been declining. What I have talked a little bit about with administration briefly was, in looking at the proposals that we have in front of us, how do our resources change, and how do we optimize the best advantages for our kids in our schools? I think we saw that happen a little bit with the Hadfield-Whittier merger. I think the fact that additional resources were combined there, I think made that success there possible. And I think as we put more students into fewer schools, we get to keep the teachers that we have and the resources that we have in those schools to provide that. And so, while the beginning of our presentation tonight was a little bit on the bleak side, I think we saw a beginning of what it really means. What are the advantages other than dollars, which clearly there are advantages to dollars, but really the advantage to the students and to the families is keeping, the great and wonderful people that we have that work in our district, and keeping them educating our kids, which I feel is the best way that we can utilize our resources. So I just wanted to, throw out those comments. I think for me as a board member, it really is about the big picture, and I think we're starting to get there. I know a lot of emphasis has been put on these 4 proposals that were the initial out of the gate, but to the point that many people make from comments, not only tonight, but many times, was, there's more to the story, and we need more data, we need more understanding. And I think that process is coming, so I appreciate that from administration as we start to narrow things down and really understand what are all the components of why this is necessary and how we can make this a positive going forward, I think is what I am looking for as a board member, and I appreciate that part tonight. So, thank you.
Mrs. Kozlowski.
Thanks. I want to echo the thanks to the administration. I did attend several of the listening sessions, and overall, I was happy with how they went, what I heard. I think the feedback from the community was a welcome surprise. I think they talked a bit about the Post-it notes and that it was going to be a silent discussion of stick your note here. But the conversations in many of them were very engaging, and there was definitely a lot of passion. There was a lot of emotions that came out. But by the end of the 90 minutes, you would be able to see that kind of taper down because they had one-on-one contact with the administration to be able to share that. And I thought that was really great to see because that was absolutely the intent of what we were trying to do. I still want to squash out, some of the rumors that come through there on the class sizes. The class sizes, we've reiterated that our focus is to keep them at 22 or under for elementary, 25 or under for secondary. That's been a focus. I think Mr. Pat did a great job in several of those, talking and reiterating that a building capacity, schools were built to be at 100% capacity. That is why they exist. And when the Bray study went through, it was to help address how to utilize the school using how we use it today, which put a very big piece to our special education. How is this used? When is this used? And I think that's a really big focus of the district. And I want to shift to what I heard from the community, that they understood what we're facing. I don't think I've heard anyone say that they don't understand why we're here. Now, they will tell you, I understand that we're here, but please just don't close my school. I get that. But they understand the reality that we're facing. And one of the pieces that I say that we are sitting at a very unique historic time to do a one-time opportunity to right-size and fix the layout of this district, both in building facilities, but also in services, and how we can consolidate that so that we don't have traveling staff, that we can actually engage our students more so that my OTs and PTs are not driving all over and they get more time dedicated to wrap around our students. And it's the service level that I think is so critical that I don't think we're yet really hearing the community flip to, which is the discussion needs to shift from a concrete building to a day in a life of the student and the services and the education that that child is receiving. Because we know that we do that well, and that is that's the focus of where we're going, regardless of where that building is. But we need to get to that point, and we need to have the reality. And I don't want to come back in 3 years and have the same discussion that now we didn't do the right thing now, and now we're going to have to come back and close something else. And these are hard decisions, these are hard discussions, but we need to right-size this the right way, and that takes leadership, and it takes the strength for us to be able to do that. And I'll close with, it's really hard with the data that we have when you've got a population of 80-some thousand, and we've got feedback from roughly 1,000. And how do you appropriately weight that so that our community really understands that we are trying hard to listen, but there is a population that is not engaging, or in some cases, they're happy because they don't have students in the district, and they are happy to see that their tax dollars in the district is going to do something to shrink that. So it's a very complex way to go at this, tough decisions, and I think we all understand that ahead of us, we need to shrink this footprint, and it needs to be district-wide so that we don't come back in 3 years, and we've heard that a lot.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a reflection and then a question. So I agree with what Carrie had said, that the community listening sessions were incredibly impactful, and I appreciated the conversations that were had. And the biggest takeaway that I consistently heard, regardless of what your position on one plan or another plan was we don't want to be back at this table in 3 to 5 years having the same conversation. I know none of us here do. And I think the general consensus was if we're gonna do this, do it once, do it right, and let's make sure that we are not having to cause any more changes in the future, at least in the near future. And so I think that's something that I really was, everybody kind of got to that point throughout each listening session that I was in, and it was interesting to watch. To Mr. Zenobia's point, I know he kind of touched on the thoughts about potential enrollment bouncing back. I would just point out there's an article recently in the State Journal about City of Madison, one of the fastest growing cities in not just the state, one of the fastest growing in the Midwest. Over the last 20 years, City of Madison's population has grown over 31%, and their student enrollment's grown by about 3% during that time. So it's, just because more people are moving into a community doesn't necessarily mean they're having kids, and if they are having kids, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to that school. We talk about all the time the amount of different choices, whether it's open enrollment to another public school or a charter school or homeschooling. But the bottom line is, over that 20-year span, only about 19% of the families in the city of Madison or school district of Madison boundaries have school-age children. I mean, that is ultimately the bottom line, is we just aren't seeing the birth rates bounce back. My question, so a number of, we have 2 plans that do some form of grade level reconfiguration. We've gotten a number of proposals from members of the public that do some form of it as well. One thing that I don't think most people necessarily think of when we talk about moving grades into one building or another, one classification of school, elementary or high school, is how that works from a staffing level with the various licensures that are required, as well as some challenges or potential advantages with curriculum. So I don't know if Sharon and Jen, if you'd be able to kind of talk about pros and cons of staffing for, one idea that we hear a lot is moving 6th grade into elementary. Are there benefits of that? Are there curriculum benefits of one over the other? I'd just be curious to hear.
I can speak to licensing. Licensing has changed quite a bit over the past 10 years, 15 years in what grade levels their licensing covers. So there are some advantages and disadvantages. So elementary, you can have a K-8 license. Right now, they're issuing 4-6 license for the secondary. So having a 6th grade in an elementary school or in a middle school, we would be looking at likely that K-8 license. Middle school, however, right now with the 6-8 model, you can have a 6-12 license, which used to have in content, and teach the 6th grade. The issue with that then is flexibility. So if you have an English 6-12 license, then you're teaching English. Instead of right now, if you had a license for 1-8, you could teach English and social studies or have more flexibility. So it's complicated because there's so many different combinations of grade levels with how they've changed licensing over the years. An advantage to like a 7-12 would be that students in the middle school who do take high school courses, particularly in math, would have access to something like that. So that would be an advantage to a licensing situation in that situation.
And then, Jen, if you want to chime in, if there's anything from like a curriculum or curriculum purchasing perspective where we see advantages or disadvantages of one form of grade reconfiguration or another.
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. All of the curriculum resources that have been approved, we purchase them for a certain amount of years, anywhere between 5 and 10 years. So everything that we have, depending on the grade and subject, is already on a curriculum renewal cycle. Regardless of optimizing our future, we are working to ensure that we look at math K-12 and literacy K-12 in the future. Beyond that, if we were to look at grade reconfiguration, we'd have the opportunity to maybe consolidate resources. Some of our resources that are used at the high school do extend down to the middle school. Some of our elementary resources do extend up and vice versa. So we would be looking at that so we could consolidate and align our resources throughout the system as much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you both.
Mr. Harlan? And then Mrs. Koenig.
So I just want to thank the administration for all the work that they've done over the summer. So that is a lot of listening, a lot of email answering. And so I just want to thank them for the work and the response that they've put in, whether it is gathering dual language, enrollment data, posting the maps on the website now. So thank you very much for that. Again, a lot of the community feedback has been kind of the fear of the unknown, and really, yes, echoing, if we're going to go through this process, let's do it once, let's do it right, and address top-down everything across the district. And I think that has been captured in those notes. My question is, I've had the tour or opportunity to tour a few of the facilities, and I think we heard some of that feedback is the opportunity to invest in some of the schools, be it walls and interior walls and doors at Bethesda, a potential elevator at Prairie. I guess where are those quoting processes? I know those take a long time. Where are they at in the process here?
We've gotten a quote for our work at Bethesda, and we just sent them roughly where the classrooms are now. And if you know, we've walked that building together, the hallways, you can actually kind of see them in there. And you're looking at a budget this is all in HVAC, electrical, all the walls being constructed, and it's about, I would say about $1.5 to $1.7 million of improvements. And that was just one that's drywall walls, it's not block or anything like that. So that's the initial quote that we received on that one.
In terms of like an elevator at Prairie, we haven't looked at that yet. If that's something that the board would like us to do, we could, but we haven't to date.
Are there any other projects that outside of the walls, obviously not the elevator, that are currently being investigated?
I would just say the only one that we still have to do legwork on is if STEM goes into Les Paul, because you're bringing lower elementary kids into Les Paul, and what changes would you need over the long term, and what changes would you need immediately, right? Playground equipment's kind of the obvious one that sticks out, but you also get into proper equipment in the bathrooms or proper heights and tables and things like that. So that one, I think, would be probably a couple of years to get us really up and running, but we really haven't been able to define that scope quite yet.
Thank you.
Mrs. Koenig.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying I couldn't be more proud to live in this community of Waukesha and seeing, the huge undertaking we're having to be faced with. The way the administration has been trying to be proactive, the way that the community has, for the most part, been very respectful and thoughtful and offering solutions instead of negativity, of understanding that we are faced with a huge problem, and it is across the country, it's global. I couldn't be more proud of the way that it's being handled. I appreciate the proactiveness. I don't want to have to come back and do this again in a few years. But we also want to be very thoughtful in what we're doing, because these are going to have huge impacts for everyone involved. Some will be positive, some will be negative. For every person that, wins out and is happy with the decision, you're going to have someone that's not. And that's a reality. But I'm very proud to be, representing this community and be a part of this, process and the thoughtfulness that's going into it. We've heard a lot of great ideas, from the administration, from the community. I've had a lot of meetings and phone calls and with all different parts of the community, including business owners, people that are, just residents in the community, and they really don't have an interest, but they've heard about what we're undertaking. And it's been, it's very enlightening to hear the different perspectives. I guess I'm just wondering more of a question. So with the 4 options that have been presented, is it safe to say that at this point, given the enormity of what has been discussed and the ideas that have come forward, is it safe to say that really one of those options is not already set, and there's going to have to be tweaking. I mean, is it safe to say that, given, all the other ideas, are we at one point or another going to possibly look at one of those but tweak the ideas at this point?
I think that's possible, certainly. I don't know that there's, as we go through the data, and we'll present the data from the summer to you in September, I don't know that you're going to, when you see it, as we're trying to investigate it, that there's one that is miraculously more impressive than the other of the current options. So I think it's a process of listening to the feedback, trying to ascertain if there are some tweaks we could make. But then equally important is what you as a board would like, right? And what you see as palatable, and trying to, I think, blend the community perspectives that we've received, the community perspectives perhaps that Mrs. Kozlowski mentioned that we haven't received, and then what your thoughts are and how we work together to come up with a final plan. So I would say that is possible, yes.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else, Mrs. Koenig? No. Okay. Can I just get a sense for who else has questions or comments so we can save time? Okay, Mrs. Voigt. Okay. Do you want to go next, or?
I can.
Okay.
Okay. I am extremely proud of the community feedback that we have gotten, but my concern is that it's only been of 1,000. And I think that we need to get more feedback as we continue, as we go forward to get, to make our decision. I think Phase 2 has given parents opportunities to share what attracted them to Waukesha, or what they love about the school district of Waukesha. And I really find that very, very valuable. One of the things that I think all of our goal is to recruit and retain students, recruit and retain staff, et cetera. And we have so much to offer. The Arts Magnet School at Summit View, just the outpouring of just support for that school as it exists, not wanting it to be switched to anything else because it's so valuable. The dual language program, it is just, I did not know how many, advantages there are for students after the dual language program experiences, and just the amazing, support and value of that program being offered by our district. I heard a lot of support for the STEM program. The elementary program at Whittier, they love it. They love the relocation and the easier drop-off and pickup that's available at Whittier. That change has been amazing. And I've heard concern that they don't want to be changed again. When we talk about not wanting to do this again in a couple of years, they were just moved there. And a lot of the teachers, have invested the time to make this work. And then the concept of like, and now we're going to move again, just is not a very positive kind of experience there. And a lot of them don't want to leave the $150,000 playground behind and not know what's going to be available at the school that they go to. Just a real valid concern in that respect. And the outpouring of support for Bethesda as a neighborhood school has just been so powerful. From the 20 postcards to the outreaches that I've had the opportunities to talk to PTO members, et cetera. And tonight our sheet about why Bethesda. I did not realize that they were a magnet school like they are. That people are choosing to come to Waukesha because they want to live in the Bethesda community. And I think that's truly, truly a valuable asset that we have to appreciate. Their concern about losing that opportunity to be able to maintain that neighborhood school. That outpouring of love and support is like, how can we take that away from them when we're trying to build the school district? We're talking hundreds of families that are here because of Bethesda. And if we're just going to say we're going to cut off Bethesda as a building opportunity to be able to go to be able to experience that love and continued opportunity for an educational experience, I think we're doing a really disservice to think capacity if we don't think about what we already have, and appreciate that. I think the concept of expanding our 4K program, they're already doing it. there was successfully to do that, get more kids into the district early on at the 4K level. Offer full-day opportunities, half-day opportunities, whatever families want, to give them a chance to be able to be in the district. And more, if we've got the capacity, offer the wraparound care opportunities that families need. So I think what we need to do is to get more feedback is let's ask the community what they love about the school district of Waukesha right now. Why are they here? What do they love? What do we want to keep that we can continue to grow on that base? How do we market our dual language program? How do we market our STEM program to get more people to choose to come here? And I think that's what we really truly have to look at this as an opportunity to take advantage of what we've seen and heard and build on that. Maybe we can fight the odds. Yes, we have declining enrollment, but we have to offer can market a program that's a magnet that's going to make people want to come. I love that analogy that in one of the presenters tonight. What can we do to attract people to come here by offering these many, many things that they're saying they love right now? And then we can maybe defy the odds, especially when there are plans for employers to want to grow in our community. If we hadn't lost Waukesha Engine, we'd be in a very different situation right now. But there are other employers that want to bring job opportunities to this area, job opportunities meet employees, and again, that means we need to be offering schools that can be able to work with those opportunities. I think we have to look at the alternative plans that we're hearing from the community. We started with 4 plans, but I can't believe how many things, like, I never thought of doing that. I never thought of doing, different configurations of try this as another school within a school opportunity to take advantage of, the facilities that are available. And I think so many things that we have a limited perspective as just our own administration, our own school board, and even our own staff. When you open it up to the 80,000 people that live here and truly, listen to them about what kinds of things that they think might be other options.
Mrs. Voigt, could I come back to you, or do you have a lot more? Or
I do have more, but yeah, let everyone else have a chance.
Let me go around a little bit, and then we'll come back. We have Mrs. Grenner, Mr. Wadd. Mr. Wadd? Okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to echo a lot of the comments that other board members have made. First of all, commending Dr. Siebert and his teams. I had the opportunity to attend, I think, about half of the community listening sessions and at least 2, maybe 3 of the staff sessions. And I just thought they were great, and they got better as we went along, as we learned more about what we were hearing from the community at the early sessions. It led to, I think, better discussions as those things came up, more preparation. I also want to commend the community members who showed up and engaged in good faith in the process. There was a lot of noise before this started about whether or not the decision had already been made and whether this was theatrics that we were going through. And I'd like to believe that the vast majority of the people that attended those sessions realized that it was a good faith effort to gather input. There were great conversations that were had, and not just between community members and administration, but community members and community members from different school districts, different points of view. And I saw people learning from each other in the community as much as I saw them learning from the information that was being shared with them in those sessions. And I certainly learned a great deal. I also want to thank all of those members of the community who have reached out to me, whether it was by email, phone, in person, and engaged in, I think, very fruitful discussions around, what are the challenges that are being faced by the community? What are the challenges that individual communities or schools are facing? And coming with real ideas and solutions and dialoguing. I know I learned a great deal, and I'd like to think that the folks that I had an opportunity to speak to at great length, I think, maybe learn some of the challenges that the district faces that may not be obvious until you start trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together to try to figure out what it's supposed to look like when we complete. So I want to thank all those folks as well. Just a few thoughts that I want to share. None of us as board members talk to each other about where we're at. So this is my first opportunity to communicate to my fellow board members kind of where I'm at after listening to what I've listened to, researching what I've researched. In hindsight, I think it probably was a mistake to not have an option or two presented to us that included keeping Bethesda open and possibly looking at other schools that may have it may fit better as closures. And so I've formally asked Dr. Siebert to, provide us with perhaps some tweaks to the options that keep Bethesda open. As a board member, I need to see those things side by side. I will also share that as I've learned more about the dual language program and I've started looking at maps, I am concerned about the imbalance in the current proposals that we have in front of us in where dual language programs will be based. Too much on the east side. Does that put at risk some dual language enrollment because there isn't enough on the west side? I also am concerned about, depending upon which plan we go forward with, if removing certain schools creates a challenge for people that live on the west side and perhaps the northwest side of the school district boundaries from a school attendance perspective. So that's another reason why I'd like to see Bethesda offered as a school that remains open and perhaps looking at other more strategically placed schools geographically, and maybe they don't exist, and that's what I need to see. I need to see what that looks like. I am a very strong believer, and I'm very pleased that we have it in all the options of a K-8 STEM program. And I am going to communicate, I've communicated, I think, to people I've met with, but I'm going to say it publicly. I am very interested in seeing proposals that provide us with the opportunity to leverage the capacity we have at our high schools to avoid having to look at closing a high school in 5 years. I do not think that is an endeavor we want to take on if we don't have to. Does that mean it has to be 7 and 8 going up to the high school level? Not necessarily. I think there's a lot of potential benefits to that configuration, but I'd like to see if there are other ways that we can leverage the space in the high schools so that if the community truly is not ready to get behind a 7-8 lift of the middle school kids into the high schools from a where they're educated perspective, that we have some other options to try to figure out how to best use that available space. So again, thank you, Dr. Siebert, to you and your team, and thank you to the community for your engagement. It's been extremely educational for me and has helped me, I think, get a better idea of what I think is important, not just to the parents and school community, but I think what makes sense to look at in terms of potential alternatives to the plans we have in front of us.
Thank you. Does anybody have a follow-up before I give some time back to Mrs. Voigt? I have a few thoughts, but I'm just going to save them until the end. Mrs. Voigt, did you want to finish?
Oh,
yeah.
It's okay? All right. I guess one of the things I definitely want to talk about is the concept that came out with Dr. Davies' recommendation that we reconsider the move that we had made a few years ago when there wasn't enough room at the elementary schools because our growth bubble was going through, and we moved them up to the middle school. The sixth graders moved up, and his concept was you know, just like we had moved the ninth graders out of high school for a period of time when there wasn't enough room at the high schools, when there was enough room, we moved them back because that made the most sense as far as curriculum goes to do that. And in his mind, the concept of, well, if there's room back at the elementary schools now, we should move the sixth graders back. And I was very, very pleased to see in one of the recent proposals, the idea that what are the benefits of having the sixth graders back there? And the big one that you mentioned earlier was the music program. You know, every music instructor that retired that I worked with over the years is like, yes, we had this dynasty in Waukesha at all the high schools with our marching bands because they had this chance at fifth and sixth grade, you know, district-wide to be getting involved, and that moved up through the district. And now we're seeing a huge change in the dynamics of that at the higher levels. Just knowing, one of the big things I always am very much involved in, concerned with is soft skills. And the sixth graders can learn so many soft skills of leadership and communication, et cetera. The playground leadership roles, et cetera, the student council leadership roles in sixth grade at the elementary school versus when they're up and moved into a 6, 7, 8 kind of environment. One of the things I was very pleased to see, the input that the one proposal broke down, if we did move all the sixth graders back, we would have a 79 to 90% capacity in each of those buildings. And we're talking about wanting to use them to their benefit for the kids. That'd be awesome, to be able to have all our current elementary schools be able to be fully used. And that would open up space at the middle level, you know, at Les Paul, at Horning, et cetera, to do some other schools with a school kind of configuration. And I think that if we move it to middle school, we move it to high school, move
I'm going to call point of order. I
sorry.
don't believe we're debating or discussing any proposals or policies at this meeting.
I think it's appropriate for any board member to share their perspective. I might need to limit time at some point, but
Thank you.
I could see the opportunity for room to be available at Horning for the 7th and 8th grade STEM program to move over, you know, a school within a school. And that might change what Horning's school configuration is, and then maybe reshuffle the, you know, redistricting I think is desperately needed. When I got the maps and looking at, you know, what each school's, you know, footprint is, I think that definitely can be, as part of this, should be definitely looked at. But then to potentially offer a place for for Saratoga to move, we could sell that building, you know, by putting it into another building, be it North, be it Horning, wherever, you know, taking the students that are currently at East and moving them to another place, potentially Les Paul, where they do have the special ed wing there right now is part of the remodeling project, and still keeping a downtown location. You know, there is a lot of, by moving the sixth graders down, there could be, you know, and redistricting, we can move some of the other programs around and be able to better utilize the spaces that are available at that point. So, again, we have to look at just so many amazing ideas that have come up, you know, through the new proposals, the Plan E. I think we have like 8 Plan Bs now, Plan Es. You know, but to take a look at the best of those and see what we could do to try to have schools within the schools better utilize, you know, all of the space that we have, you know, and be able to sell Saratoga, be able to sell, you know, the White Rock, you know, kind of options. So anyway, those are just some thoughts that I would love to see us consider as we look at our next option plans. I think there were a lot of people that said they didn't like any of the plans that were there. You know, A through, partly because Bethesda was being closed in every one of them. I think we need to be offering other creative solutions, because this can be done and be done well for the community.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be quick. I know during public comment, we heard a lot of folks who expressed some concerns about what that transition process might look like whenever regardless of which plan we choose. I know folks are going to have to leave, and they might not stick around for the entire board meeting, but I highly recommend checking out the Teaching and Learning Committee where Principal Elliott from Hatfield Elementary spoke, and he touched on what that merger process was like for their school and what they did to make that merger successful there. So cheap plug for something that's coming up, but I know folks are not necessarily going to stick around, so just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt not to reiterate anything that's already been said. I have just a couple of thoughts, and maybe to Mrs. Voigt's point, I think it's fine if people have ideas, board members have ideas, you can bring those to Dr. Siebert and to the cabinet. We are anticipating, if we can get that scheduled, a board workshop prior to the next board meeting. So when Dr. Siebert references, bringing stuff back in September, I know this seems like, we're not going to sit for a month without making progress. We wanted to give the leadership team, the administrative team, time to synthesize all of that information and to come back with some other things. In some of my conversations with community members and some individuals who we got to spend a little bit deeper time with, there were some really good questions posed to me. And I thought rather than trying to rehash those thoughts, I would just read my answer to one of them. And the best question that I was answered in all of this was, what does my ideal long-term plan look like? And for me, that has to be something that can optimize the academics and the student services that we're known for, with very clear reasons for families to want to stay in the district, but that also reduces our service locations so that resources aren't spread thin, and that creates enough operating runway so we don't keep coming back for changes every few years. And I think we have to be comfortable as a group, as a community, to say, like, these are the reasons why we're doing this and what we need to get out of it. And so, but way back to the April, May conversations, said this several times. We obviously we're going to talk about buildings because buildings are home to people. It's that physical space that we're comfortable in. But we have to move the conversation to less about where you're arriving in the morning and more about what your day is going to be like. Now, I know that it's hard to separate those things, but the services are the things that are going to speak to what your day is going to be like, and who are the educators that are surrounding our kids, and what are the experiences that they have. So for me, the services, the academics, the special education, the specials, we have teachers traveling at great lengths in the district, and so we need to make some corrections to that. Even if we don't like the data, whether it's the financial data or the enrollment data or whatever the data is that we don't like, there's a lot of things in this process that are out of our control. That's how public education works in a state like Wisconsin, right? There are numbers and things that are being set that we don't necessarily have control over. So we have to control the things that we can control to the best of our ability, and in most cases, that's going to be our expenditures. So I think that's a really important part of all of this. I was asked, do I really think that the district is open to ideas or proposals from the community? I guarantee you we would not be here if we weren't. There's no way that this leadership team would have put, the hours that they've put into engaging with our community members and having board members be a part of that if we weren't open to it. And I was also asked, if you were forced to make a decision today of, A through D, what would you make? I'm not prepared to make that decision, and I want to appreciate and acknowledge that I don't see board members having these conversations offline or behind closed doors, but I am not aware that anyone would be in a position today to choose one of those options. I think we've said from the beginning that these options are ideas that our administrators got behind and said, these are some things that we think we could make work on paper and why we think these are things that could work, and they've stimulated a lot of conversation that has led to where we are. I do think that we are in a position to be able to make a decision. I know that's going to be hard and not going to feel good. I love when I see families coming together. I would not be here today if it wasn't for things that happened back in 2020 and 2021 that brought me and a whole bunch of, really determined parents together. So this is what all of this is about. And sometimes the outcome isn't necessarily what we want it to be, but this is keeping me awake at night too, right? These aren't decisions that we necessarily want to have to make, but for the good of the long-term sustainability of the district, I think it's important. I will end with a mantra that I share with people who I coach and with my kids and anyone who's struggling with change, and that is that what got you here will not get you there. And what we are facing in public education over the next 10 to 15 years is not going to look like it does today. And so we're going to have the courage to do things that don't have a definitive end because the change is imminent. And I think we have the right people at the table, including those community members that have chosen to engage with us. So I'm appreciative of all of that. But I don't take any of this lightly. And so I'm thankful to all of you for what you're doing. Would the cabinet have any other comments or anything else to add before we transition? Okay, any final thoughts? Okay. All right, we are moving on. It will be time for the consent agenda, which is pretty lean this evening, but per policy, your agenda includes various categories for approval. If any board member wishes to have an item set aside for separate consideration, you will have that opportunity. It does not include any public gifts, any expulsions, or any policies or bylaws. Would anyone like to have anything set aside? Seeing none. Mr. Zenobia, would you present the consent agenda, please?
Yes, thank you. Earlier this evening, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee approved 8 resignations and 16 new or modified contracts. The information was provided in your packet, and an addendum was placed on your desk. I move that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
David Wad.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. We will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Siebert.
All right, thank you, Dr. Piasek. We'll begin with the overnight field trip report given by Ms. Getterman.
Hi, I have 2 overnight field trips to share about tonight. The first one is for North Varsity Cheer. That was going in August 9th through the 10th. And then West, this is planning out to go to Florida for choir performances in March of 2026.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gunnerman. Then very quickly tonight, as I said earlier, we began the 25-26 school year in just under 3 weeks. And so I certainly want to thank our principals and Ms. Thede for the great job they've done with hiring. We've had a very good summer of retention, and the positions that we have had to fill, they're doing a great job working together on bringing in the highest quality people that we can. And I also want to sincerely thank our custodial and maintenance crews. While a lot of people are gone in the summer, they are not. They are the ones that are here and making sure that the buildings are gleaming and beautiful for when all of our kids and teachers come back. So appreciate those men and women a great deal and thank them for their ongoing service in the summer and throughout the school year. So we'll have a great school year. It'll be awesome. We'll kick it off here shortly. It's one of the greatest times of year. And that concludes my report, Dr. Piasek.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert. Thank you to you and your team. I know there's a lot of professional development around the corner and a lot of classrooms that are going to be getting pulled together over the next couple of weeks. So thank you very much. We will move into our committee reports. And this evening we start with the Policy and Government Relations Committee presented by Mr. Wad.
Thank you, Dr. Piasek. The Policy and Government Relations Committee met on Monday, August 11th, 2025. There were 3 policy discussion or information items on the agenda. The first was the May 2025 Neola Policy Update, Volume 34, Number 2 Overview. This update includes a total of 30 policies that have been assigned to the appropriate committees. 6 will go to Finance and Facilities, 11 to Human Resources, 4 to the Policy and Government Relations Committee, 7 to Student Services, and 2 to Teaching and Learning. Any questions on the policy, the Neola update? There were also 2 policy technical correction information items. Policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities, was revised to remove a reference to a deleted policy, 5611, You may recall that in March 2025, Policy 5611, Due Process Rights, was rescinded because its content was already included in Policy 5610. And then the second technical correction was to Policy 8800, Religious Activities and Observances. The policy was revised to delete an obsolete statutory citation. The citation, 29 CFR 1910.1030, refers to bloodborne pathogens, which are obviously not applicable to the Religious Activities and Observances policy. We did have one discussion with possible action item on the agenda. There was a new policy, 9150.02, campaigning and political activity. This was a new policy that was designed to kind of pull together existing pieces of guidance on these areas from multiple policies into one central policy and sort of identify for the community in one place, identify permissible and prohibited campaigning and political activities in that single policy. So the policy was pulling from 32, this policy was pulling language from 3216 and 4216, which deals with staff dress and appearance, policy 2240, controversial issues in the classroom, policy 3231, outside activities of staff, 5720, student activism, 5730, equal access for non-district sponsored student clubs or activities, policy 7510, use of district facilities, policy 9150.01, elected officials speaking in schools or to students, and finally, policy 9700.01, advertising and commercial activities. After lengthy discussion, the committee sent the policy back for potential language clarification. This policy will be brought back at a future Policy and Government Relations Committee meeting for further consideration. Any questions on that?
I have a question. Is it clear between the administration and the committee what that work is?
So I will offer my own personal opinion on that. I struggled to provide specific guidance to Dr. Siebert and asked the committee to provide it. Dr. Siebert, I think, has a sense for what the committee wants, but I'm not sure that we clearly identified what changes we're looking for. And I frankly am not convinced that what we discussed really is something that can be incorporated or should be incorporated into the policy. So I think there's work to do between now and the next time this comes forward, either for committee members or board members, to spell out specifically what issues they have with the policy as it's currently drafted, or to, provide language that they think, or clarifications to language that they think may be ambiguous. In my opinion, the language covers what we wanted it to cover. It pulled together the pieces of policy that we have throughout both our various policies, but also administrative rules for staff and so forth, and put it in a one-stop shop for people to reference when they want to know what's allowed and what's not from official political activity. And I think it's important to clarify what we're talking about here are things related to specific electoral issues, things that are going to appear on a ballot, or candidates who are running for a specific office. We're not talking about generic political activity where someone may come and want to, share their concerns about actions the board is taking and the district is taking on school property. This isn't an effort to restrict anyone's constitutional rights. This is clearly designed to just pull it all into one place so that it's easily identifiable. And I'm not certain, Dr. Piasek, that we have provided the guidance that Dr. Siebert will need to to do that, to make the changes, because I don't know that they were clearly identified by the committee.
Okay. I think Mrs. Kozlowski wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, since in taking in heart of the conversation of political campaigning, if there's any merit to adding a section that titles in board. So if you are a school board member and you are a candidate, are there things to walk with? Part of what I would say that I am considering is campaigning behind the board bench. So the balance that we have as a current elected official to do the jobs that we're being tasked to do, yet being for reelection, I think is a gray area. We do have administrative rules and bylaws that couch that, but in looking at the things that were pulled into this policy, I was just asking, does it warrant anything to have that same conversation for guidance for members of the school board?
So do you have policy language that you would recommend in that regard? Because that might be one way to approach it, would be to just recommend language that you'd want the committee to consider?
I actually drafted something, but I'm happy to email it.
Okay. If anybody else has something, or if you do, you can just let me know. My understanding of this is, I think maybe there is a misunderstanding of the intent of the policy. When I look at what we have, and this has happened over the years, right? We have 300, we have 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, 9,000 series policies that address all things related to, like Mr. Watt just, named them all off, all things related to what you can and can't do in the context of campaigning for something. And it isn't just a school board position, it's something. And we're in a public environment, a governmental body, there are taxpayer resources, there are all these things that we have to consider. So when I look at the intent of the policy, it is, how do we aggregate all those things? Because nobody's gonna be able to find all of those things. I struggled with that myself as a candidate, right? So how do we find all those things? But to address the district operations, to ensure that there's neutrality and fairness in how political candidates and representatives are treated within the district. So I think there was some language speaking to official district business or official parental business, which I think is fair. I think the intent is to avoid any perception of endorsement or bias by the district, which would come as, in the course of doing your work or conducting your duties as a district employee, you wouldn't want to have someone wearing a campaign button in the course of doing their business. But that is clear in our dress code policy as well. So I didn't have any real problem with what was in the policy the way it was drafted, but I wonder if maybe just the purpose of why we were going down this path was perhaps lost. I know there were some specific things that happened over the course of the last few years that raised questions like, well, can we do this or not do this? And maybe it wasn't clear unless you had all 8 or 9 of these policies aggregated in front of you what the decision would be about that. And the other reason I think potentially for doing this now is because we don't have active campaigning. Do it before it turns into something where we're trying to correct things on the fly. So I didn't particularly have any problem, but just in listening to the conversation of the committee and kind of thinking about what is the spirit of this, right? It's not intended to stop anybody from saying something. It's not necessarily intended to prohibit anyone from a constitution, well, obviously not prohibiting it based constitutional rights, but really how do we get all that information in one place and avoid the perception of bias or endorsement on behalf of the district, which I think is ultimately what we're aiming for. I don't know what you guys think about that, but because it's not a bylaw either, it's policy. So it's not about how we're governing ourselves. I see you nodding. Do you agree with that's where you were taking it?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I do think we got kind of lost in some of our discussions. trying to focus on what's permissible for this group or what's permissible for that group, and that's not the intention. It's designed, I think, to what is permissible with district resources, whether it's our facilities, our people, our events, right? For that very purpose, to avoid any implication that the district endorses any particular candidate or position that may be on a ballot. So we'll take it back to Dr. Siebert. Hopefully this will maybe spur some additional thoughts, or we can clarify that further when we eventually bring it back for further consideration.
And if there are suggestions or questions or language that either coming from people who weren't on the committee or from committee members who've had a chance to think about it, I would say forward those along. I think if we were to move forward with this policy, it would be important to do it in the near term, and not to get in a situation where we're trying to correct on the fly things that might pop up.
Okay, one final government relations discussion item. Dr. Siebert provided a 2025-2027 state budget update and highlighted several positives. The district is benefiting from low revenue ceiling relief. In addition, there will be an increase in special education reimbursement, up from 30% to 42% in the first year, 45% in the second year. The legislature also voted to raise the reimbursement rate for high-cost special education from 50% to 90%, an increase that will provide a significant amount of savings for the district. He also noted the challenges that come with this state budget, which include no state equalization aid to assist with the $325 increase in the low revenue ceiling. I know we'll get into this in more detail in facilities and finance, but Waukesha's been a fiscally conservative school district for decades, while the state school funding formula rewards spending. We will be debt-free in April 2026, which should be a celebration and lead to a decrease in our local tax levy. However, as we'll learn later, projected decrease in state aid will probably lead to us having to consider a tax levy increase for our constituents instead. Dr. Siebert mentioned that we do have a solid rapport with our legislators and will continue to advocate on the school funding front. This concludes my report. Next Policy and Government Relations Committee meeting is scheduled for September 8th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Wad. And I think very appropriately, our next committee is Finance and Facilities, update given by Mrs. Kozlowski.
Thank you, Dr. Piasek. The Finance and Facilities Committee met on Monday, August 11th. There's one action item and one discussion item. The first action item was the approval of the 2025-2026 preliminary budget and tax levy. Each year, the Board of Education is asked to consider a preliminary budget and tax levy that, once approved, are forwarded to the district's budget hearing. These budget documents represent the best available information related to the current year budget and tax levy. Wisconsin's budget laws ensure transparency and accountability. Statute 65.90, Parent 4, guarantees residents the right to be heard on the proposed budget, while Chapter 120 makes it the school board's legal duty to adopt and manage that budget so the district can operate without interruption. Together, these statutes protect public input while requiring the board to fulfill its responsibility to approve a budget that funds staff, programs, and services. The 2025-2026 preliminary budget and tax levy are based on the following key assumptions and the recently approved State of Wisconsin biannual budget. The Department of Public Instruction's July aid estimate is the loss of 9.21%, or $5,883,883 in state equalization. A 2% decline in the third Friday of September resident pupil count, which results in an anticipated 2025-2026 resident membership of 10,854 pupils for revenue limit purposes. The revenue limit authority increase of $325 per resident student. An increase in the special education reimbursement rate from a budgeted 30% last year to 39% in 2025-2026. 5% increase in the district equalized property valuation. and the district final payment on its outstanding long-term debt on 4/1/26. The preliminary budget is a temporary, legally mandated funding plan that ensures the district can operate while waiting for the final revenue, aid, and enrollment data in the fall. Without it, the district loses legal authority to pay staff, fund programs, meet contractual obligations. The upcoming key dates will allow the district to calculate and approve the final 2025-2026 tax levy in late October. The results of the third Friday pupil count on September 19th, certification of the district's equalized property valuation on October 1st, certification of general state aid and voucher program participation levels on October 15th, and lastly, the approval of the final 2025-2026 budget and tax levy on October 29th. In the interest of securing the public's feedback on the annual budget process, the committee approved the preliminary budget and tax levy for your consideration tonight and asked that it be approved and forwarded to the budget hearing, which will be held on September 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. The committee approved on a 3-2 vote the 2025-2026 preliminary budget with total revenues of $217,827,436 and total expenditures of $227,464,886, and I so move. Everybody still awake?
And I second the motion.
Seconded by Mrs. Voigt. Any discussion? Mr. Harland.
Yeah. So obviously I was involved in the discussion within the committee. And I had questioned kind of what the process would look like if we didn't proceed with this given proposal, given that we had been forecasting a steady decrease in the levy, and then all of a sudden it flipped pretty significantly to an increase. Just curious, and I know you walked through it briefly. Could you share, Darren, kind of what that would look like if we did not and proceeded to review the budget further?
Yeah, and it was outlined in the script that was shared with you. We have an obligation to pass and have a budget hearing for the citizens to have a chance to hear it and provide feedback. So that's the outreach part of it. The other part is we need to, and we always laugh because we're several months into our fiscal year already without any budget, but at some point we need to have the board authorize the expenditures that are incurring prior to the October final approval of everything. Getting to the tax levy part of this conversation, which I think is generating these questions, and it should because it has changed significantly. The board spent a lot of time developing a debt service payback plan that provided a $5.6 million drop in the levy this year for our debt payments. Me, along with, I think, several board members, at least at the time, thought that was a good, big enough cushion to offset any major swings in the state biennial budget. And what it ended up doing was, and we're using the Department of Public Instruction's aid estimate, that drop in Fund 39 levy is doing nothing more than offsetting basically the drop in aid, but it's not offsetting the increase in per pupil revenue authority that the board is being authorized. So if you look at the budget through the lens of revenue, we're gaining revenue, but if you look at it in terms of the tax bills that are just mailed out in December, we are taking a kind of an unprecedented swing in the loss of aid in a year where we really thought we were in a good position, to the point where I shared a draft of the budget and levy in June with the F&F committee, because that draft, just to get something in their hands so they had something to think about as we entered into this month's actions, just said that we'd have a frozen aid amount. It wasn't, we're going to gain 10% of aid, and because that would be completely unrealistic. But it was a major shift in how I think some of our representatives, their tact of having no tax increase on average across statewide, and a movement from that. But I also think we should take into consideration, just think if we didn't have that $5.6 million drop in our Fund 39 levy, we'd be looking at a significant tax levy. Can't calculate it in my head, but you'd be probably in the 8% range. So no one will ever recognize that except for the 12 or 13 people maybe watching this at home. But it shouldn't take away from the good work that we've done to try to stabilize that levy impact.
Mr. Watt?
Yeah, so I appreciate the clarification. I was one of the people who voted against this on Monday night in finance, and I'll maybe come back to that in a moment. But I think maybe the piece that I was missing was the statutory requirement to pass a preliminary budget in order to continue to spend. Knowing that now, I probably will reluctantly vote to approve this, but I'm going to share some of my concerns. And this isn't a concern with the district and the way that we've budgeted or this body. It's a concern with the position we are being put into as a board, where essentially, to something that, Dr. Piasek referred to when we were discussing some of the stuff related to our need to look at reducing our footprint and reorganizing our district. And there's a lot we don't have control over. And there used to be a time when Wisconsin was proud of the fact that we talked about local control of our school districts. Well, here we sit 2 months into our current fiscal year, and we didn't find out until a couple of weeks ago that we were going to lose a massive amount of state aid compared to last year. And I believe the number is close to $6 million, which totally flips the script on what we as a board and what the administration and the business office has planned in terms of the way that we were going to budget for this coming year. We were talking about giving taxpayers a tax cut, and we're now talking about having to give them a tax increase, and there's not a darn thing that this board has done differently or the district has done differently. Instead, the state decided that they were going to give the school district or the Milwaukee School District an extra $78 million. They're going to give Racine an extra $15 million over last year. And all the other districts are going to have to take a bite of that. It's driven by the silliness of rewarding districts that pass referendums and then get rewarded by getting more state aid because they're spending more. That's the way the formula works. So I voted against this initially because I wanted to make the stand that, if I'm sitting out there and I'm looking at a school board member being confronted with a sudden tax increase, that just passing it because some change in finance says we have to, would make me wonder, well, why can't you look at your expenditures? Why can't you look at your, at your revenue? Do we really have to spend all that extra revenue authority that we were granted by the endless, perpetual $375 per pupil increase each year? But knowing there's a statutory obligation to do so now, I will vote for it, and I do think it's something that we will want to talk about before we get to the final passage of the budget, are there levers that we can lift? Are there expenses that we can cut so that we don't have to pass that level of a tax increase on to our property taxpayers?
Looking to see if there's anyone else who wants to offer comment. This is always a hard thing, right? The preliminary budget is hard because we don't have the certified numbers. Even, I always going to push back on Darren a little bit, even, in May, June or whatever, when we're talking about like preliminary budget projections, it's like, why are we even having this conversation? We have no idea what the aid numbers are going to look like or what these equations look like. There are a lot of things, we weren't even sure we were going to have a state budget at some point not too long ago. So I think there were decisions made in that budget that the general aid was was deprioritized over some of the more specific aid categories. We're seeing that on the special education side. We have done a really good job with our tax levy over the last several years. And what we've done with the referendum debt and defeasance strategies has allowed us to get into this tapered situation where we've just kind of run out of levers. But the reality is, and I did allude to this, we rely on the state for about 60 million of our $200 million in revenue, and there's obviously the movement between the special ed revenue and expenditure. So I'm using round numbers. But when you do that, we are vulnerable to state level budget shortfalls. We are dependent on those decisions that are made at the legislative level. But one thing I also wanted to offer, I went and looked at my own tax bill because I'm always kind of tracking, and I have a few addresses and tax keys and stuff that I keep a spreadsheet on because I'm just trying to see how the different municipalities are going. I know I drive Darren crazy with all of that too. But one of the things that people also don't realize that happens on their tax bill is that school levy tax credit, which is something that's even more complicated to understand than some of the equalization aid. And some of it uses fair market value and some of it uses assessed value, and how do all these pieces come together? But there was actually an increase in the school levy tax credit in the biennial budget. So that is going up. And that is a credit that people get back on their tax bill that's proportionate to their assessed value as a function of the total assessed value of all properties in that municipality that are in that particular school district. And that actually went up. So just running some round numbers, when I look at what the tax levy increase might be because of our loss in this general aid, which was flat, and then I look at what the increase might be because of the credit that's coming from the school levy tax credit, they almost wash themselves out. Now that's just looking at one sample, and we don't really have control over that because the assessor's office that's determining what is the aggregate of properties worth, and Waukesha might do it one year, and then Pewaukee might do it the other year, and so those things are all kind of relative. But I guess I offer that as an example because even if we think we understand what's happening with our own levy, we don't know what's actually going to happen on individual constituents' tax bills. And there's so much more to that funding equation that is happening that we don't have control over. The biggest problem is that it's a third of our budget that we don't have control over. And I kind of poked at Mr. Watt on Monday when I said, we didn't ask for a recount when we got more in a prior year. But it seems like it's kind of this teeter-totter, right? And so what's the threshold when, well, we didn't get $1 million that year, but then we got $1.5 million that year, and then we didn't get $2 million. And now when it's this big of a number and we're doing everything that we can to control it is when it feels like now we've kind of lost control of the situation. So the thing that we control is the expenditures. The per pupil increase is something that, it's not mandatory that we levy for that. I think in a time when we are trying very hard to avoid an operating referendum, we're trying to take care of our buildings, and we are a low revenue district to begin with. In my opinion, it may not be the right time to be looking at that, but there may be a time that we need to look at that. Mr. Watt.
Yeah, just a couple of quick responses to that. I understand why we may not want to look at not taxing to the full revenue limit authority. I get it. But I think it's a discussion we should be having every year. Every year that we get this revenue limit authority granted to us that was not even passed by the legislature. It was a single stroke of a pen by a governor that imposed this on taxpayers. We should be having that discussion, I believe, as a district every year. Do we want to spend to it? So I think it's something that we should be discussing. Otherwise, we're just complicit in passing along that tax increase to our constituents without ever asking the question. And I certainly understand your point that last year we got the budget increase. I will point out, though, that the year before we got a budget decrease, that those two things sort of balanced each other out. And we anticipated it. We anticipated that change because we knew Milwaukee hadn't filed their financial reports on time and they were going to be penalized. We anticipated that increase last year. This came as, I think, a huge surprise to all of us, the size and scope of the state aid decrease. And that's why I felt it necessary to ask, should we confirm that this is accurate, that they've calculated it properly?
Mrs. Voigt?
I think it's important to let the community know that we're approving this under protest. And why? You know, and that might take a press release to be able to, this is complicated. Even people who study it, it's complicated. You know, like, but just to let them know the big picture, we tried our hardest. You know, the lack of local control over this, it's not because we wanted the levy to go up in any way, shape, or form, but it's out of our control. And I think that we need to communicate that. And we'll approve it under protest because we want to pay our teachers and we want to pay our bills.
Anybody else?
Kelly, you have something to add, because something Kelly mentioned that kind of triggered my thought on this, and it is the ebbs and flows of your aid versus your revenue authority, and it is the nature of it. Now we're experiencing it post paying off our debt and having that flexibility. But just to give some context, because this is always looked at in a one day snapshot. In December, when everyone gets their bill, that's the day the true measurement comes forth. But just for some history, this is going through last year, our last official tax levy. Over the 3 years prior, in 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25, the average levy change in those 3 years was a negative 3.26%. That included a 1 year where we dropped 10.2%, then we had 2.88% increase, then we had 2.47% decrease. So I think we should look at this in a longitudinal look, but I know that's not the lens that people do because they get that mailing every December, which I think is a good thing because it keeps them engaged in the conversation. Also, since 10 years ago, again, through 24, 25, the average levy change was an increase of 0.21%. But it wasn't a smooth road between 10 years ago and the approval of that budget last October. So there's some context. I don't know what that gets you besides just base knowledge to share, but it is in our budget book in the back to show that history. But it also shows the fluctuations that this board, now that we're done with the defeasance of debt, we're going to be facing on a recurring basis, because just looking ahead another year, there is no additional equalization aid in that year either, and there's $325 more per pupil being added. We did try to factor that into our debt plan, and there is another $2.3 million drop in the tax levy for Fund 39 that year, so we are trying to cushion that. I'm just not sure we're going to be able to keep up with what came out of the state biennial budget. And I'm not saying, I'm just telling you the impact. I'm not saying the merits of, the trade-off might have been we got more handicap aid reimbursement for special ed costs, and maybe that's worth it. But just, I thought on the tax question, because it tends to be a year-by-year conversation and not a multi-year look at the impact.
So we do have a motion that was seconded. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Ms. Zettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
David Wad.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Passes 9-0. All hostile ayes.
The committee approved on a 3-2 vote the preliminary 2025-2026 tax levy in the amount of $82,380,252, which represents a 3.77% increase over the previous year and an anticipated tax rate of $5.26, and I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zenobia. Any questions about that? I'm not seeing any. Mrs. Zettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
David Wad.
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Still here.
Mrs. Voigt.
Can we add
I
under
have-
protest?
Also under protest, yes. Back to Mrs. Kozlowski.
Moving on to the discussion item. We had one discussion item, which was the monthly budget report. The committee was presented with an update on the school district's fiscal activity through July 31st. The administration reported the auditors were on site last week completing their initial field work. It was noted that the 2024-2025 audit process will continue over the next few months and that the final financial statements are scheduled to be shared with the F&F Committee and the Board of Education in early 2026. The next F&F meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 8th, 2025 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom. And Dr. Piasek, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Kozlowski. All right, next committee is Student Services, and it'll be presented by Mr. Harland. Nope, I'm sorry, the next committee is Teaching and Learning, and it will actually be presented by Mr. Zenobia this evening because Mrs. Keeney was not in attendance. Mr. Zenobia.
Thank you. So the TNL committee meeting was held on Tuesday, August 5th, here in the boardroom. We had 3 discussion and information items on our agenda. The first of which was the Hatfield Achievement Gap Reduction Grant update. Prior to the Whittier-Hatfield merger for the 22-23 school year, Whittier had received an AGR grant that has since been transferred to Hatfield. Annual updates to the Board of Education is a requirement of receiving the grant. Each update includes information about the grant, specific strategies being implemented, and student results. The Hatfield Elementary School principal, Mr. Mike Elliott, shared that they utilized 3 allowable strategies, which include instructional coaching, intervention and tutoring, and small class sizes in some grades. He also highlighted that student results in the areas of student engagement, literacy, and math. And he showed that these measurable students showed growth in all of these areas, being literacy, math, and engagement. Points of pride for Hatfield, beyond the student results, were that there was a high teacher retention and a strong and growing Hatfield community culture.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Yeah, I already kind of teed this one up earlier, but seriously, anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to hear from Principal Elliott, I encourage you to, not just because he was able to touch on a lot of issues that are relevant to the conversations we're having now, but also if you want to see somebody who truly is passionate about education and passionate about culture building at a school and what that looks like. Mike is just the perfect example of that. I wish every educator had an opportunity to work with someone like him because you can just tell when he comes to this meeting. It's one of my favorite parts of TNL every year is when we get the Hatfield update because it's so positive and you can just see the level of passion and care for his staff and students that he just exudes in everything he does. I want to key in on 2 of the statistics that he provided us with, one of them being the teacher retention that Mr. Zenobia spoke to. I think he said there were only 2 staff members, not just teachers, but staff members, including paraprofessionals, custodial staff, everybody in between, that they had to replace at Hatfield this last year, and one of them was because she had a newborn baby and she wanted to spend time at home with her child. I think that speaks to the level of culture that he's built amongst the staff and just the level of trust they all have in one another. And, a lot of the conversations that we're having now around optimizing our future and concerns that folks in the community have over how will these mergers impact especially some of our highest need populations, right? Our special ed students, our at-risk students, our second language learners. Those were the same conversations we were having a few years ago around the Hatfield and Whittier merger. And if you look at what they're doing there, it's remarkable. And it shows that, yes, we all love our schools, we love our community schools, but what matters is putting the right people in the right position to be successful, and Mike does that every single day. The other number I want to cue in on is the number of radio calls, because I think this is something that anybody who's worked in a school over the past few years has become really familiar with. In the 22-23 school year, they had 2,446 radio calls, or 14 per day. These are calls for additional support when a child's having, a behavioral issue or a traumatic episode or whatnot. This past school year, they got it down to 760, so 5 per day. That's not just significant because it shows that kids are learning how to self-regulate and they're taking care of themselves better, and it shows that what they're doing is working to help alleviate some of those stresses that happen over time and some of the various behaviors that you have to deal with kids. That's a huge win for teachers, because anybody who's been in a classroom where you constantly have to radio for help, it no longer feels like a classroom, right? You get really overwhelmed. It is one of the fastest ways to burn teachers out is when you're constantly having to radio for help because there's a behavioral issue. I also think another big reason why we're seeing this drop in radio calls and drop in some of these extreme behavior incidences is because we have invested as a school district in high quality, streamlined curriculum that's guaranteed and viable. Because we know that when kids are learning and when they're engaged and when they're being challenged rigorously in their classroom, it's going to reduce behavior because they're no longer feeling like they're left out. They're no longer acting out to avoid learning something that they're not at grade level yet, right? Like, this is where a lot of the work that's being done around literacy is super helpful, because if kids can read, they're going to be engaged in the lesson. If they're way behind their peers, they're going to find other ways to either seek behavior for attention-seeking purposes as a cry for help or just as an avoidance purpose. I can't tell you how many students I had who never failed around math time. They wanted to go to the guidance counselor, or they all of a sudden got a stomach ache because they wanted to get out of math class and they needed to go to the nurse's office, and we catch on rather quickly. But that significant drop in calls for help for behavior, I can't tell you how big of a deal that is, and I think that's going to continue to get better, and it's just a testament to the work that they've done there.
Mrs. Boyd?
I want to say, too, that it's the love factor. You know, the kids feel loved there, and when you talk about the culture, it's their personalized welcome that they did this last week to go to each home of the new students that are going to be coming in for the coming year, to visit them at their home and make them feel welcome makes a big difference. And that staff is just amazing in terms of the love they share for their students.
Mrs. Koenig?
I just want to add on to what you said, Diane. It is true that the culture there is nothing but pure love. I know a lot of teachers that teach there. It is a family. They absolutely, respect and look up to Mike. They work as a family. They love those kids like they're their own. And as soon as you walk in there, you just know people that work there and how they talk about Hatfield. They talk about their employees, their coworkers. They do things outside of the building. They do spirit days together. I mean, they really do treat it like a family. It's kind of a magical place.
All right, moving on to our second discussion item that we had. It was on the curricular resource for suicide prevention module within the Health 9 course. In 2008, the state of Wisconsin developed legislation requiring schools to implement suicide prevention standards in curriculum. In '24, the legislation was updated, leading to a review of district curricular resources. The team found that although Health 9 included content for suicide prevention, it was not standardized for content or delivery. So in March of '25, the TNL team updated the board regarding this work. Since that time, a team of Health 9 and PE professionals reviewed multiple resources from Navigate 360, NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Wisconsin Department of Instruction, and Erica's Lighthouse. Last week, Ms. Ryan, director of our secondary TNL, shared with our committee that portions of the DPI resource were preferred. The committee asked the curriculum and student services team to develop an outline and scope and sequence to be brought back to the committee for further consideration. Our third information item was on strategic planning update. The School District of Waukesha has established key performance indicators that serve as a foundation for our continuous improvement efforts. For the second year, our district strategic actions were developed to meet the key performance indicators. These strategic action plans align to the school action plans for each school year. And a handout of the district actions were provided, and a draft of one of the school's strategic action plan was shared with the committee. So that concludes the TNL report. Our next meeting will be here on September 2nd. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to student services, given by Mr. Harland.
Thank you, Madam President. The Student Services Committee meeting was held on August 5th, 2025. There was one action item and 4 discussion and information items on the agenda. The action item was regarding approval to revisions to policy 8451, pediculosis. The committee felt very strongly that our current policy was appropriate, so no action was taken on the policy revisions. The 4 discussion and information items, the first one was the transportation update given by Joni Sablich, the location manager for First Student. She shared information about the 24-25 school year and changes that they're implementing for hiring and recruiting for the upcoming 25-26 school year. Through multiple outreach events this summer, as well as a focus on retention of current drivers, they are poised to be fully staffed for all 75 bus routes. The second information update was from Mr. Dan Schreier regarding the WIAA approval of the name, image, and likeness language. So Dan joined Mr. Pat to provide an information update on the district's role in managing the NIL. All of North, South, and West have provided information for their students as well as their families on their websites. All student athletes and their families are strongly encouraged to meet with their athletic director before entering into any NIL agreement. The third update was a behavior update. Mr. Pat presented student behavior from the 24-25 school year with comparisons to the 23-24 school year. Overall, the majority of referral categories were trending downward. Absenteeism and truancy in particular are ongoing issues. A continued focus on building relationships and partnerships between school and home will create a more positive and supporting learning environment for all students. The final update was the 24-25 district nursing report. Mr. Pat highlighted portions of the annual nursing report, except for the high schools, health rooms continued to see an increase in the number of visits over the previous year. Medical emergency response teams are in place at every school to respond in case of a sudden cardiac event. These team members receive ongoing training, and by the end of the 25-26 school year, all district schools will be designated Heart Safe, which is a part of a Project Adam through Children's Wisconsin. Heart Safe School is successful or has successfully completed a quality sudden cardiac arrest program of awareness, training, and effective emergency response to promote a safe environment for students and visitors. The next Student Services Committee will meet on Tuesday, September 2nd at 6 p.m. And this completes the Student Services Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Any questions? Okay. Last update for this evening is from the Human Resources Committee, which will be given by Mrs. Koenig this evening because Mr. Zenobia was not in attendance.
Thank you, Madam President. The Human Resource Compensation Committee met earlier this evening, August 13th, 2025. Shortest agenda ever. There were no action items on the agenda for this evening, and there are no discussion items on the agenda for this evening. Ms. President, that includes my report.
Thank you. All right, moving to other business. Any recommendations for future board or committee action or discussion items? Okay, we do have a need to adjourn to executive session for 2 topics that I suspect we will return on. One. So I would need someone to, I'm getting some looks.
a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business. Whenever competitive or bargaining reasons required a closed session, this is in regards to the first student contract amendment. Also, to adjourn to executive session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This is in regards to the superintendent evaluation and compensation for superintendent and executive administrators.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brooks. Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
David Wad.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Passes 9-0. So we will adjourn to executive session. We will return to take some action. Our next full board meeting will be here on Wednesday, September 10th at 6:30 in the boardroom. Okay, we're back from executive session, and we will start with a roll call. Mr. Wad.
Natalie Gren,
Here.
Anthony Zenobia,
Here.
Thomas Harland,
Here.
David Wad here, Carrie Kozlowski,
Here.
Eric Brooks.
Here.
Diane Voigt,
Here.
Betty Koenig,
Here.
Kelly Piasek.
Here. Okay, we have two actions to take. We will begin with Mrs. Kozlowski on the transportation contract.
I motion to approve the first student contract as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Wad, would you take the roll call, please?
Yes. Betty Koenig,
Aye.
Natalie Gren,
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
David Wad, aye. Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Thomas Harland,
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
Diane Voigt,
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. Our second action tonight is executive compensation. Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. I would like to motion to approve compensation for superintendent and executive administration as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Koenig. Mr. Wad, would you take the roll call, please?
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
David Wad, aye. Betty Koenig,
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Diane Voigt,
Aye.
Natalie Gren,
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Thomas Harland,
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. And that concludes our business for this evening. Good night, everybody.